You can tell him now if you're watching it, we're still fighting for this title, and he's got to go to Middlesbrough and get something. And I'll tell you, honestly, I will love it if we beat them. Love it.
Hey Rajis, welcome back. Episode 004. I'd like to start the podcast by dedicating this episode basically to a good friend of mine, a lad who I grew up with, a classmate as a brother. It's Dean Lodge. Last week, it was 11 years since he passed away. I'm gonna reel off a little bit of stats. It was Mental Health Week. I think it's next week. So I wanted to just reel off a couple of stats and kind of make people aware of the kind of pandemic we've got for men's suicide at the moment. As far as Dean goes, we grew up together. He taught us everything I know. In fact, there's a funny story, right? Basically, I went to my first college party. I was 16-year-old. Didn't know how to dance. Didn't know how to have any clothes. I was a kid, basically. I had chava clothes, like socks tucked in and stuff. And he basically, I went to his, he says, come to mine, I'll get you some clothes, I'll get you rigged out, and I'll sort you out, right? Goes up to his, he gives us some cargo pants with dangly bits or bench ones, you know what I mean? Sticks them on his bench top, skin tight, because he was a big lad, he's into the gym and that. And he says, right, I'm going to put some music on, I'm going to teach you how to two-step, and that's all you need to do. All you need to do is just two-step side to side, right? So in his bedroom, he's playing the music with two-stepping side to side. Anyway, went to the college party, had a blinding night, and that's just the type of bloke he was. Do you know what I mean? He's like, he was a lot older than us, sorting all the young'uns out. And he's been a big miss since the day he left us. So just a quick shout out to his family. We love you. And anything you ever need, we'll provide you. So I just want to say, in 2020, there was 3,925 suicide deaths, right? And 75% of those were men. So that means you're 3 times more likely to commit suicide if you're a man than you're female. And this is not a knock on females. I know you deal with the same or your own kind of issues, but I just want to make you aware that kind of the vast gap in male and female suicides. Also, as well, come from the northeast, being only fills the northerners. The northeast is you're twice as likely to commit suicide than you would be if you lived in London. And that's the same for Yorkshire. Yorkshire's the second highest suicide rate behind the northeast in England. So it's worth making people aware. And I just want to point out a couple of websites. So safeline.org.uk deals with the silent crisis, men's mental health, and also what's called the calmzone.net. If you go on calmzone.net, they've got a lot of stuff on there to deal with support, raising money for charity on men's mental health, etc., etc. And also, because we're a podcast, Life interrupted with Simon Thomas deals a lot with covering things like grief, alcoholism, trauma. Good podcast to listen to. Also, Detoxicity by men, about men, for everyone. I'll put the links to these in the description as well. And that's more like fatherhood, relationships, and depression when being a father. And finally, Man Up, the UK's mental health podcast, and that deals with stuff like eating disorders, masculinity, and getting away from that kind of toxic masculinity and the fact that we have to bottle everything up. So speak to someone, basically, whether that be your friend, your brother, your family, or even a stranger. That finishes that dedication. Dean, we love you, bro. So
we love you. We've
got Si in the podcast, and we're going to do a quick Sambuca Sours now to welcome him into the gang.
Great to be here, boys.
So Sambuca first, Si, right? And then Sours after.
Yeah.
Cheers, boys.
Not a problem. Cheers lads.
Oh. And just for the record, I am alcohol free because of the boxing. But I have decided to do the Sambuca Sour because, that is the tradition of the podcast. So
what do you think?
Coffee.
What do you think?
Great. Love them.
Yeah, I like them.
Yep.
Next time down the Labour Club, you'll be on them every time, won't you?
Gets the thumbs up from me, Kyle, definitely.
The thing is, as well, what we said, we know that sours is minging. We normally do it with apple sours, and it's so much better.
Well, it kind of balances out the Sambuca because I didn't really like the taste of the Sambuca, but
that's
the sour
exactly
after was a nice contrast.
That's exactly why we do it, man.
Yep.
Welcome, brother.
Pleased to be here.
Welcome to the show. It's been a long time coming, hasn't it?
It has, yes.
I'll quickly dip back into. We have mentioned it before, but we'll quickly dip back into how we actually came out to meet you because we did. Did you know Si before meeting him last year?
No.
So we had a little bit of a football do for our kind of local football team that me and Geth played for, and our manager basically said, "Oh, me cousin's popping down for a couple of beers. He's been away for a while," and we were like, "Oh yeah, sound." It was a party in the middle of lockdown, but in the legal part, we'll say. But anyway, it was
barely legal.
Yeah,
it was
yeah.
barely legal, wasn't it?
It was in the back room.
It was in the back room somewhere.
Socially distanced, of
Oh
course.
yes, always. And then you came in, we had a big crack, and you were kind of just making your way around saying hello to everybody because a few people there you didn't know, and all the young lads basically.
I mean, just to give you a quick heads up on that, I was basically meeting people a full generation after me.
Yeah.
Like, I knew Daniel's dad.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So when I was saying to people, "Who's that lad there? I know his face."
Yeah.
And our Craig was like, "No, you know his dad's face.
Yeah.
That's Gethin's son." And I was like, wow. And that made me realise how long I'd been away.
Yeah.
So I was it was, 1996 when I left Horden.
Yeah.
So obviously...
We'll touch back on how that affected you as well.
Yeah.
Walking into that pub and seeing guys who are literally you've kind of skipped a generation there.
Totally.
So we kind of sat down. We had a couple of pints, and then Craig or Whiffs basically just said, "Listen to the crack he's got," and then you started talking. And this, so make sure everybody's aware. At this point, me and Geth had been talking about the podcast for a while, but it was like, where do we start? Where do we go? Spoke for 5 minutes with Si, and it was like, just looked at each other. It was like,
oh really? Your plan had hatched all the way back then? I didn't realise that.
Yeah.
I didn't even know you two had actually had the idea of the podcast
for about 3 or 4 months before that, because I'd just come back from the US as well. So
he was massively into podcasts, but when he come over, he was like, "Oh, you need to listen to this. It's really, really good."
Yeah.
And obviously it was the Joe Rogan podcast,
Yeah.
I was quite new to podcasts, so I was like, and then when he came back home and introduced us into that, and I was like, "Oh, that's fucking mint."
Yeah.
Like, I listened to the Kevin Hart one for Joe Rogan, and it's like, honestly, Simon,
Joe Rogan, legend. Yeah.
If you ever get the chance to listen to Kevin Hart's podcast with Joe Rogan, I've never been so inspired by a man in all of my life, and to say that's a comedian, he's non-stop. He's just a businessman. He might have these comedian. That's his main.
It's just total
thing,
hard work, isn't it?
But he's incredible.
I'll be sure to check that one out.
So we were sat there and we just looked at each other and went, "It's the first guest there, right there." Right?
That's new to me. I didn't realise you had made that decision so long ago. I mean, that was what month was that? Can you remember? I believe it was
October or November of 2020.
I landed.
We'll leave it
open because the dates might have been lockdown, so we'll leave that open.
You're okay. Sometime
October, November, December time.
The lines got a little bit blurry, didn't they? Yeah.
But we looked at him, and then we chatted. Me and him chatted privately a bit about that. I was like, right, we need to start getting some stuff in motion for this. And then the kind of third lockdown hit over Christmas, put everybody back a step, and then the new year hit, and it kind of took a back burner. It kind of became every night we were out drinking, it'd be like, we need to get the start, and then the next day it'd be like hangover, you forget about what you've said. And then Euros, in the same bar, the Euros, you came down, I can't remember what game it was, quarterfinals or something. It was late stages.
Germany?
No, I didn't watch the Germany game in a pub, I watched it down.
Germany was in the comms. It was the one before Germany?
Might have been, yeah. Who did we play for Germany?
Didn't we beat them 4-0?
Yeah,
we did. These times in JDs are quite hazy for me, as you can imagine. And that particular first Sunday afternoon was very,
Croatia?
very, very hazy.
Was it Croatia?
Croatia. Anyway, right. We'll have a look at that after. Right, we'll correct that after. But you came over and I said, "Oh, are you still coming on the podcast?" And then you basically went, "Well, I'm waiting for you." And I was like, "Fuck." Yeah, all right. Yeah, we're set up. We're ready to go. I'll get in touch with you. And it was kind of like,
remember saying that.
And it was kind of like, shit, he's ready to go here, and we've not even started looking at like what we need. And that was
you messaged me at that point because I wasn't at JD's, and he was like, and he texted us. He went, "We need to sort this out. I've just seen Si. He said he's waiting for us." I was like, "Oh fuck!" Like,
basically,
you kind of like pushed us,
give you a little bit of a kick up the backside,
which is a good thing as well. So thank you for that, because it did make us think, right. And then we started doing a little bit of research. What do we need? What's the kind of kit and equipment we need? All that bollocks. And it got to the point where, not JDs, but the Labour Club. And I told you, look, we've got all the gear set up, ready to go.
Yes.
And you looked at our Instagram, and this, I'll tell you this, you won't know this either, but you looked at our Instagram and the photo I uploaded of me and Geth put like photoshopped onto the Robin and Batman suits on.
No, I didn't actually see it on the Instagram. I was just verbally told about it.
Right.
He was like, saying, "Oh, we've called ourselves this, and we got a picture took like this." And then I kind of stood back a little bit and thought about it and thought, "Ooh, only fools and all that." I was like, wasn't quite sure what I was getting myself in for, but anyway, go on.
So basically, Si thought he come up to us and he said, I didn't know if I want to do the podcast anymore. And I was like, what? What do you mean? I said, we're good to go in about a week's time. We're going to get the first episode in about a week's time. And I text Geth. I was like panicking, like, he doesn't want to do it. And he was like, well, it was just miscommunication. You thought the podcast was a bit of like a slapstick, like take.
To be fair, I hadn't listened to it, but I'd only heard the name.
Yeah.
And when I thought the name, and I, obviously reading a little bit too much into it, Only Fools and Northerners, and I was like, oh lad, is this basically going to make a spectacle out of my experience?
Yeah.
Are you saying that I'm a fool? And you were like, no, Si, it's not about that. It's not about that.
Yeah.
We're
the fools.
Yes,
that was the point.
And you said, we've kind of got two sessions. I think it was the Friday night and the Sunday night. You said the Friday night was just a daft laugh and a bit crack, but the Sunday night was kind of a much more of a serious note and with special guests and addressing serious subjects.
Yeah.
So at that point, once I heard that, I give you the nod of approval and say, all right, then, okay,
And then a bit of logistics moving around. Here we are tonight. And we had a little bit of a wobble before the podcast. I'm not going to lie.
Technical hitch.
Yeah. So I sat there on the couch with a bottle. It just doesn't matter, lads. I'll come back another time. I said, nah, I'll get it done.
But we're aware.
3-channel audio up and running.
Yes, yeah. And I'm learning every day. I'm like a tech whiz now. You know what I mean?
Groovy tech. Yes. He's getting his level 2.
So basically, and the one thing I didn't realise is how long ago. So where did you grow up? Sorry, obviously in Horden, but where did you grow up?
Oh, where did I grow up?
Yeah,
about a mile away from here, Kyle. Just down in Horden, in Burnside Avenue.
Burnside. So that's where you grew up, down Burnside?
Yeah.
I grew up always lived
there. And, fast forward, 35 years later, and I'm back in the same house with my mum, obviously. So grew up there and still there now. So full circle, mate, full circle.
Come full circle, mate. I grew up in Thornbury Gills, which is just the street opposite. Yeah, we lived there.
Certainly is,
we lived there for 20 odd years. So, and I tried to get into a house in Thornbury Gill as well to move back to my home street as well. But so grew up in Burnside, Where'd you go to school?
Went to St. Bede's. Was a Catholic. Left school in
2 Dean houses, I mean. Here we go. We have to get the
we've always had bother. Dean House, shot and all, Asian. Yeah.
Used to meet on the field. Meet the hardest bloke versus hardest bloke.
We did, mate.
Each school.
Yeah, good old days.
So left school. Get into work.
Left school in 89. Actually, left school with not much direction. Ended up in a basically the first factory job that come along, and less than a year into it,
like most people around here, though, isn't it? It's
me mum and a good friend of my mum's came and just basically dragged us out by the ear and just went, "What you doing in a factory, Simon? You're better than that. Come on." Dragged us back to Peterlee College and went and did a business studies course.
Really?
And absolutely loved it. That was a big turning point in that period in my life.
Yeah.
16 to 17 working, and I think I was earning £30 a week on a YTS in a factory, you know, and kind of, is this what you want to do for the rest of your life? I thought, no.
I don't think anybody wants to.
No, but it's just like when you're 16-year-old, you're not mature enough to make those decisions for yourself.
We've spoken about this before.
Yeah. It took someone to kind of come up to me and kind of slap me around the face and say, what you're doing, you need to. You're better than this. You've got a half decent brain in your Simon. Get yourself to college. So I went and did 2 years at college. Did business and finance, and absolutely loved it. And then came out and got a half decent job. And,
Yeah.
you know, that was kind of the start of my career, and you know, things moved on from there.
It's a bit of a plight round here, isn't it? Though? Because being an industrial town,
Yeah.
that is the easy, not the easy option, because it's hard graft. So don't get us wrong, the lads and lasses who work up there are putting in some hard graft. And
They
then
are.
12-hour shifts, continental shifts, all this. I mean, my
Yeah.
dad worked in NSK for I think 20 years, 25 years before he seen the light and then tried to get out.
Yeah.
So it's there, isn't it?
Yeah,
so if you got no direction, go to the factory kind of thing. And what I'm saying we talked about is the kind of school system is you leave with no direction, and that's the point.
You that's right, Kyle. You
Sit
don't,
down, cross your legs, fold your arms, and when you leave here, you're not my problem anymore.
And there was barely much input from the careers office. It was basically you're 16, you leave school, you're going to go and sign on the door, or you go.
Well, around here they expect anyway, so
Yeah.
they just expect people around here. Unless you show some exceptional promise, then they'll start giving you different avenues. But if you're a smart lad or a lass,
Yeah.
just like not regular smart, even if you're just you're a high level of smart, but they don't have that advice because they're not smart enough themselves to give you that advice. So they just say, "Well, head that way. It's good money. Just do it."
Well, that's it. I mean, the generation before me was, coal mining. I was not old enough
just missed it then, yeah,
to make that. So I just missed it. But I think the mines closed the early 80s, 83, just as I was starting senior school. But a lot of my uncles, older cousins, and were down the pit.
Yeah,
and that closed. All the mines closed in the Margaret Thatcher era, and then it was Dewhurst and the crisp factory.
Dewhurst,
I worked at Dewhurst.
I worked there.
Cheap
myself,
clothes on a Thursday afternoon, wasn't it?
That's right, the factory shop.
Yeah, factory shop, yeah.
You
And
know-
they used to didn't they used to search on the way out and make you pull your trousers up, make sure you didn't have two pairs of trousers on, nicking them and that, yeah.
I can well believe that, Kyle. I can
One
well believe that.
of my old friends used to work at Johnson, and he used to say, "What do you want? It's factory shop Thursday. What do you want?" I said, "I need some new trackies." He said, "Give us a tenner, I'll get you two pairs of trackies." There you go. Every
Yeah,
time.
but that was in the days when England actually could manufacture clothes at
Yeah.
a competitive price.
Oh well, yeah.
I mean, I think was in the 90s, it was just like blown out of the water by China.
Yeah.
The factory of the world. And all of a sudden, all of these Marks and Spencer's factories, Dewhurst, Claremont Garments,
Yeah.
they just dissolved.
over.
Mate. It was quite sad because a lot of my aunties, cousins, and family members had factory jobs, whether it was Smith's Crisps, Walker's Crisps, Claremont Garments, Dewhurst.
Well, this again, I was on about the suicide rate earlier before the
Yeah.
podcast, how it kind of dipped in the early 90s, mid 90s, because life was good.
The good old
life
days,
was
yeah.
sterling. Everybody had money, everything was high
Yeah.
paying. And then it hit the 2000s. China took over the production industry, the kind of manufacturing industry.
Yeah.
And then also the kind of money dried up, the lending dried up. So that put a lot of people in a harder position. So obviously you went down a different route, got a nice little qualification on your belt. So what age was that, like 18, 19?
I did. So I left school at 16, but I was back into college at 17. So I did 2 years of college, 17 to 19. That took me to 1992. Left college with a diploma in business and finance, and went and got a job with a local clothing retailer through Sunderland.
Oh, right.
There's quite a few lads that remember this, and they'll probably remember me working there. But it was called Tucci.
Tucci, we remember Tucci.
You
Yeah.
remember Tucci?
Yeah.
So,
it was still going for years after the constant closing down sales.
Yes.
It still went for quite a while after that.
I
doing
heard,
that.
I wasn't here for that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I got in at a good time, and I remember my interview, the guys were telling me like, oh, we want to grow and we're just expanding and we want to employ some young good kind of, candidates. And they were like, we're growing and we'll take you with us. And they did, fair play to Tucci. I started there at, 19 years old at the bottom, just doing genuine like shopping warehouse work. And slowly worked me up. I'd worked a lot on computers and worked on like stock control systems. So
probably a lot more than most people at that point as well.
Yeah. And probably 18 months in, I was made a manager, then got promoted to another manager. Yeah. And in the end, long story short, Kyle, I did
It's quite easy to move.
I did 5 years there.
Yeah.
And then it was time. I'd kind of outgrown the position.
Yeah.
And when I looked around, there was no similar jobs in the Northeast.
Yeah.
working for a retail head office. So I spoke to a recruitment consultant, and they were basically like, "You need to go to London, Simon."
Really?
Yeah, had a girlfriend at the time who just been accepted for a job for Virgin. So off we went for Virgin Atlantic as cabin crew.
Oh, right.
Oh, so you actually worked as cabin crew, did you?
No, not my girlfriend.
Mrs.
At the time,
I was like, the plot thickens.
steady on, mate. No.
Trolley dolly.
So, I mean, one minute I'm working in Sunderland and I'm quite happy. I've got my flat in Sunderland, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, let's move to London. And I was like,
Quick one on your flat in Sunderland. We were just speaking before that,
We
weren't
were,
we?
yeah.
About getting on the property ladder. So how old were you when you bought your flat in Sunderland?
I think I was 19.
19. And we're on about that good time in the 90s, so that'll be 92, 91?
Probably more like 93, 94.
93, yeah. Good times. How much did you pay for your flat?
Oh,
And owned it as well, like
I
mortgage.
got a 95% mortgage on my own, and the purchase price was 35,000. Happy as Larry, mate. Happy as Larry.
Can you imagine that now? I mean,
Aye.
you're saving for a house now, right? If you could get... So what would you need there? So you need about $1,500 deposit,
Aye.
basically, to get your own spot.
I think it took us about 3.5 months to save up the deposit,
Yeah.
and that was it.
Aye.
Done.
That's
The
nuts.
the difference between the prices now and the prices then.
Well, I've just paid there.
Get absolutely shot.
Finally, the house is complete.
Has it?
Yeah.
Oh, fucking hell.
$4,000 stamp duty.
Yeah.
Just stamp duty alone, right? And I've been scammed a little bit through the councils dragging it out past the stamp
Fat
duty.
councillors
Yeah.
grease in the pockets, you horrible bastards.
Well, it's correct, because this house got the offer accepted in March, right? During the stamp duty relief of COVID, where you didn't have to pay any stamp duty.
Yeah.
It's gotten to the point now where up until last week, they'd basically not had any paperwork. We haven't had no paperwork from the council. Stamp duty relief ran out on Friday.
I heard, yeah.
Monday rolls around, all the paperwork's ready to go.
Oh,
Full stamp duty. So
sod's law.
absolutely shafters. But so grand deposit to get your own spot, and then now you're like moving to London. And so did you get a spot down London as well? Did you sell all right? Did the flats all right? Did you
No,
keep it?
I moved down. I put a tenant in my flat in
Yeah.
Sunderland because it all happened very quickly, and I wasn't sure, whether it was going to be fully permanent. This was I was a little bit nervous to be honest.
Yeah.
So went down, saw a few recruitment consultants, got a job, and then looked at some prices in London. Realised, well, I'm not ready to buy in London yet,
Yeah.
So just went and got rent in a house here.
Yeah.
Found a student that wanted to rent my flat.
Yeah.
The rent was enough to cover the mortgage plus a little bit on top, and
Yeah.
thought, packed my
Happy
bag,
days.
stuck it
There
in
you
the
go.
boot of my car, and thought, felt like Dick Whittington.
Oh,
Off we go, yeah, off to London.
Down the rocky road.
Well, just to jump back a step, I always remember when I got my job and left home. I think I went to just in rented accommodation first, but my mum actually said, Simon, the best advice I can ever give you is don't rent. Don't bloody make a landlord rich.
See,
As soon as you can, get on the property ladder and buy. And I was like, oh, really? Okay. And I tell you what, it was the best advice she ever gave. Because
honestly, that's real advice. That you
it
know.
is. It's lessons in life. It's real life advice.
It's a lot of advice that a lot of kids don't get these days. You're quite fortunate that you got that advice at an early stage, because you do get people who rent for the rent. They get into the rent bubble then, and then that's it. You'll never own a house ever again now. And that's
it's impossible to save.
it's a system. It's a system to keep you down and to keep you renting, to make all the rich just richer, basically. But that's a different.
It's
episode,
a
that.
conversation for another day.
Yeah.
That guy, but,
So you're in London now.
Yep, in London. Went down there, got 3 job offers. The first agency I went to see, Debenhams, Marks and Spencer's, River Island, I think it was.
Yeah.
Basically,
River Island must have been in its infancy then as well. That must have been like the new kid on the block. Back
Yeah,
then.
and I took the one that was the most money and that offered a London travel card, obviously.
Yeah.
So if I get this travel card, I wouldn't need my car. So I
Yeah.
can sell my car, so that's, an extra few £100 a month I
Yeah.
won't have to pay for my car. I was
Yeah.
like, oh, and all the people down there going, oh, you live in London now, you just get the tube, you don't need a car.
It's weird because you're at the turn of technology. Coming into mid-90s,
Yeah.
like in London as well, where it's all going to be
Yeah, it was like-
cutting edge.
It was pre.com, wasn't it?
Yeah, no car. I mean, to come from the north and then to say I'm going to sell my car
Yeah.
is like nuts.
I
Like,
know, yeah.
That's a lot. People will be keeping hold of the steering wheel before they
course,
let go
yeah.
of the car. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Nobody's going to
100%.
let go of the car. So now you're on the tube every day.
Yeah.
To your job. Yeah,
Yeah,
Enjoy
and,
it.
you know, I like the whole London culture. I mean, I was in my early 20s, absolutely loving it. The fact that you could go to work, not have your car keys in your pocket. So Tuesday night, Wednesday night, whatever,
Couple of beers.
leave the
Couple of beers at
Debenhams
night.
head office in Oxford Street, go straight into the pub and have a couple of beers. And, you know, sometimes it went on till 11 o'clock. Sometimes I was out at 8:30, 9 o'clock.
Yeah,
But, you
yeah.
know, it was, you worked hard and you
There's a bit
played
of
hard.
freedom as well. Innit?
Yeah, and, you know, you were always, you know, no more than 5-10 minutes away from a tube station or a train
Yeah.
station. So I liked the big city lifestyle. I mean, once I was old enough to leave home, I kind of went from Horden to Sunderland. Then I worked in Newcastle, so it was always like village, town,
Yeah,
big
you're working
city,
your way up.
and then capital
Yeah.
city.
Yeah.
So, you know, for me, it was just a natural progression. And each time I made a move, I was like, "Yep, this is for me. I'm
Really?
liking this."
I
Yeah.
hate London. I've been in London a
I
few
love it.
times. And do you,
No.
do you
Yeah, I
love
love
Do you?
it.
Now
I was going to move there before, wasn't I?
Oh shit! Yeah.
I do now, Kyle. I couldn't live there now, but when I was in my 20s
Yeah.
and
I
single,
suppose that's different. Yeah.
a young single professional,
Yeah.
it was a great time down there. It really was. It was, you know, I worked hard and I played hard. I loved looking forward to the weekends and just
Yeah.
going out. It was such a multicultural society. I mean,
Different than a social club, isn't it? Yeah.
Oh, for 100%,
Yeah.
mate. I mean, I was living with Kiwis, Aussies, South
Yeah.
Africans, and they were taking us to all these different squat parties and
Yeah,
warehouses
yeah.
every week. And I was like, wow, you know,
Just
this-
opens your horizons, man, doesn't it? Yeah,
Completely,
yeah.
mate, completely,
100%. It's a thing that I don't think a lot of people who, unfortunately, don't ever get to leave this town or don't want to. And some of them will say, some of our friends will say they don't want to leave. They're like, I'm happy here. I don't want to leave. I'm like, because you haven't experienced it. If you experienced it once, you'll see that as like, I want to do that over and over, and I never want to leave that. It opens your horizons a little bit. There's the people that you meet on your travels are just unbelievable.
That's
man.
true. But, you know, you got to respect that some people, they grew up here and they've just got no desire to travel. And, you know,
My roots are here. I'm always
Yeah.
coming back. We're doing this here in Peatley, or just we're on the basically the board at the Horden anyway. You know what I mean?
I feel like I've betrayed my roots because I'm a Hordener through and through, and I'm living in
Peatley.
It's a.
Wait, the newspaper clipping said 2 Peatley lads, and I was
I
like,
know I was fuming about that.
yeah.
oh,
So I said we both grew up in Horden, but we're actually like probably from Peatley. Not many people know Horden, so she just put it in as Peatley lads. I was like, no Horden lads, no Horden lads.
when I was down London and people used to say, where are you from? I didn't have a choice of saying Horden or Peterlee. I had to
Newcastle.
basically say Sunderland, County Durham and
Yeah.
Newcastle.
I feel like when you do, even if you go abroad and stuff like that, like where you from? County Durham. Where's that? People think it's in Ireland and everything.
I always work my way in. So I start with Newcastle, and then they know a little bit about the northeast, and then they'll go, whereabouts in Newcastle? I go, actually not Newcastle, near Sunderland.
Yeah.
Whereabouts in Sunderland? County Durham? I know County Durham. Peatley? I know Peatley. We're actually Horden. And then eventually you end up all the way down there, down them steps. It's like, oh, my uncle grew up in Horden or whatever. Like I did down in Cambridge the other night. Yeah.
Oh, I think, do you know what the worst thing I hate though? When you go somewhere and they say, oh, so you're Geordie then?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
I'm not a fucking Geordie.
I've dealt with that my whole military life, I'm not going to lie.
Well, when I was in Thailand, and as soon as because obviously, you know, the Thai people don't know the difference between County Durham, Horden, and Peatley.
England or Ireland, Scotland.
So I'd obviously name the largest city, and the connection would be made to football.
Yeah.
And they'd
Yeah.
say, oh, Newcastle, Alan Shearer. And I'm like, but as time progressed, a few people had heard of Sunderland, and I was absolutely amazed when
Yeah.
one day a lad turned around to me and went, Black Cats, Black Cats. And I was like, yes, mate, the Black Cats. Absolutely correct.
So life in London was good then. Good, yeah. So what? So where did it progress then to want to leave the UK?
Right. So London's a very transient area. You meet a lot of people down there who are literally passing through. They're there
Right.
for a few years.
Yeah.
They're on 1-2 year sabbaticals. There's Aussies, Kiwis that are just passing through. So I was quite happy living down there and working down there,
Yeah.
and thought that's where I was going to be, for the foreseeable future.
Yeah.
But then I noticed people around us that were I'd go to a party, for example.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, what's the party for? And they'd be like, Chris is going away travelling on Monday.
It's the perfect place for gap year, isn't it? Like everyone going on the
it
gap
is.
year.
So I'm like, and you'd sit down and go, where are you going? Oh, well, I'm spending 6 months in Southeast Asia. Then I'm going to Australia.
Yeah.
Then I've got a work visa here. And I'm like, oh, okay. So, it piqued my interest a little bit. And then a lad I was living with, really good friend of mine called Paul, who was a Brummie. He was at all these parties with us and hearing the same crack as me. And he just came home from work one day and he went, that's it, Simon, I'm doing it. And I said, what? And he went, I'm going travelling.
Yeah.
And I went, okay, mate, fucking hell, fair play to you.
Yeah,
He said,
yeah,
what's
yeah.
brought this on? He's like, he was a hard grafter. He was an accountant. He was constantly crunching numbers all day.
Stressed to bits though as
Also
well,
worked
yeah.
for Debenhams as I did. And, he was in the pub every night, trying to drown his sorrows. And, anyway, he told us his plans and he's like, well, if you're getting into Australia before your 30th birthday, they'll give you a 1 year working holiday visa. I thought,
right.
okay. I think I was 28 at the time.
Yeah.
He was 29. I said, okay, tell us more. So he told us. So he goes, my plan is to basically fly into Bangkok, do all of Southeast Asia in 6 months, have enough money to be able to finance that trip, be a
Yeah.
backpacker.
Yeah.
And then when I land in Australia, graft, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I thought, I like the sound of that. And, I'm 28. So that was the seed planted.
Yeah.
And then obviously I saw the countdown, the months and the weeks and the days for him,
Yeah.
went to his leaving party. And then all of a sudden I'm left. And I think what triggered it for me was I was sitting at my desk in Oxford Street in London, having a particularly shitty day. They were all. Anyway, an email came through and it was him, and he was in Chiang Mai in northern Thailand, and the first picture I looked at was him floating down the Mekong River on a bamboo raft, and the second picture was him on the back of an elephant.
Really?
And I just thought, and he's me sitting in an office looking at spreadsheets, crunching numbers, and I'm like, I need to do this. I said, I need to do this. Obviously,
Yeah.
so I started quizzing him. How much does it cost? And and he's like, well, this is the flight. And I was really surprised at how much accommodation cost in Thailand, Cambodia, Laos. He's like, for £3 or £4 a night, you can stay in a nice little bamboo beach hut on the beach, blah, blah, blah. So that was that seed planted.
Sounds like paradise,
So I
doesn't it?
started.
It does sound like paradise.
I started saving with a right. I'll give myself a year, and you know what? Long story short, I carbon copied his roadmap and his plan.
Yeah.
He was emailing me. I was getting his digital postcards every few weeks. So I had the blueprint. So from that minute on, I became like unsettled in my job. I was getting itchy feet.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, isn't it?
There was no turning back after
It's
that.
being dangled. Then
It
hasn't
has. So, but to be fair, I did a good stint in London. I think I'd had 3 jobs. So I'd had the initial job, moved twice, got a bit of a pay rise every time, and then just realised. I thought, London, it's hard graft, and the office atmosphere, it's cutthroat as well.
Well, that's why there is so many. It is so transient though, because people come in and they think everybody thinks this is for them. They spend a couple of months there,
And they
grinds them down, and they're like,
can't.
I need release now.
Yeah.
I need to get out of here. I need
That's
to sit. Is it the beach with
Leonardo
not to
DiCaprio.
talk your story down, by the way, because this is a Hollywood movie.
not
but
on it.
I'm pretty sure he's got the hustle and grind of just everyday life, just getting on him. He's like, I fucking need a beach somewhere. That's what I need. Like,
No,
fuck this
he's
shit.
travelling, isn't he? He's already travelling.
Is he?
He's travelling,
He's already
and he
travelling.
hears the
The
myth
rumblings,
about
that's
the
it, yeah.
perfect
Daffy,
beach.
That's it,
Daffy
yeah.
fucking.
Yeah. But that's what you're getting.
Robert Carlyle, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what you're getting. You're sitting in this office looking out the grey window, because it
Yes.
would have been, wouldn't it, in London?
Of course,
The grey
London.
window.
London in March, it's grey and
Yeah.
it's raining, and
And somebody send you a photo with bright yellow with
and
sun.
your boss going, Simon, have you finished that spreadsheet yet? And I'm like, fucking hell.
So yeah. So that was it. Seed planted.
That was me. And I had a difficult day at work. I think I'd had a few crosswords with my boss, and I bit my tongue. and I went out in my lunch break, and I went to the flight centre, and I looked, and I remember the day as clear as a bell, and it was return ticket to Australia
Yeah.
with one stop anywhere in Asia, 550 quid. Do you know what?
What?
So
I'd chop your arm off for that. Now, people would chop your arm off for that.
I bought it. I came back to work
Yeah.
with a big smile on my face, and I can't remember how long it took us to break it to my boss, like. But when I did, you know, fair play to her, she wasn't that pissed off. She smiled at me and nodded, and she went. She said, "I had a feeling you were going to do that,
Yeah.
Simon." She gave me the big thumbs up and went, "You'll love it,"
Yeah.
because she'd already done it.
You know, yeah.
She'd finished university, and she went and did it. So
Oh,
that was nice. So
it's a nice little bit of reassurance that to say I'm making
yeah.
the right choice here. Do you
Yeah,
know what I
no,
mean?
it was, you know, she could have been, you know, bitter and sour, but you know, she didn't. And you know, I was one of many. Like everyone was doing it. You know,
Yeah.
you were the odd one out if you weren't doing the old.
It'd be good to see like you know, a Hollywood movie where you're sat there grinding everyday life. You know, when you see everybody in all the booths and they're just slowly disappearing and there's different people. You know, like kind of mashup where the faces
I know
change
exactly
and you're the last one sat there just like
in the cubicles, clicking the keys.
clicking, and it's just that clicking. And it's like, right, fuck this. Bookers are flight. Yeah.
I'm off.
I mean, and as well, one thing. So my plan was 6 months in Southeast Asia, and then the 1 year work and holiday visa in Australia. So I thought maybe I would be back here after a year and a half now.
Yeah.
Or how things change.
Yeah.
We'll cover that one later in the conversation. But
Yeah.
basically, long story short, I never went back.
Yeah.
Yeah. That I wasn't meant to be fully emigrating out of England. This was meant to be a year off, maybe 18 months off.
So that's what I didn't realise that when he told us it was 96 that you left. So it was 96 that you
96
left.
that I left the Northeast.
No, all right, sorry.
And then I did 5 years in London. So I think it was just after Millennium. It was
right.
2002
Yeah.
when I planned the travelling, and I actually got on a plane December 2003.
So I didn't realise you was actually going travelling. I thought you'd moved to Thailand already to kind of pursue that lifestyle that was already happening. I thought you were already having that lifestyle.
No, I mean, that was a sequence of events that unfolded.
So basically, you were just a normal 9-to-5 guy in London.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then just-
You just wanted the life, what everyone wants, really.
Yeah, and you know, it was once I was in Asia, I was hearing a lot about people doing the diving instructor's course. And basically,
It's standard. It's like
that-
it's a
that-
standard traveller's thing, isn't it? Yeah.
to get your paddy and become a diver. But this was
run
was
jet
actually
skis or something.
to teach it and become a dive master. And you know, and I still had a few quid. I think I was under budget, and I thought, do you know what? If I maybe get this qualification, maybe I can dive my way around Asia and work and travel, therefore not spending my money, therefore prolonging my trip.
Yeah.
So let's just say I can dive and work for 6 months. Then, you know, it was all about putting off the date when you have to go, right, I'm out of money and I have to go back to England.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, if I can get my dive master course, invest a couple of thousand dollars in becoming a dive master, I could then, you know, finance the trip by diving, just beach hop basically.
Yeah.
So I spent a few months on a very small island off the northeast coast of Malaysia called the Perhentian Islands. Absolutely,
All right, yeah,
absolutely beautiful, tiny little island. They only had electricity for a few hours a day. Running
Really?
generators. Yeah, I mean it's not like that anymore.
Yeah,
I went back
yeah.
a few years later, and you know, it upset us a little bit, to be honest.
Well, so the kind of
development
travel
moved
industry
into-
as well had moved into there. Yeah.
You know, this
tourist
This
industry.
was like the locals climbing up coconut trees, hacking the coconut off with machete, coming down and, you know, hacking the top off, putting a straw in it and giving you it for breakfast.
Aye.
Pineapples off the trees, fish caught in the sea. And literally, I mean, it was.
That is like the beach, isn't it?
That's really-
Yeah, it is.
Aye.
I mean, it was. I
That's
loved
real
it there,
life.
and it was. You know, it was really cheap. So I thought, this is where I'm going to do my dive master course. So I did it, studied hard, got my head in the books, got out on the boats, dived, studied, passed all the exams, and did it. So I left there with me dive master ticket, and got some work in different parts of Asia. I think I worked in Indonesia, in Bali, Thailand, and then did some work out on the Great Barrier Reef up in Queensland
ya?
in Australia.
Really?
Yeah.
Shit.
So I was now in Australia with obviously my normal CV, which was retail based,
Yeah.
and as a plan B, I was a dive master as well. So to be honest, it surprised us the fact that I couldn't get employed
Yeah.
in what I was doing in London. Like in London, I was a retail merchandiser, like a buyer, basically buying in stock, doing all the number crunching, the planning, the merchandising, the forecasting. And in Australia, there was just nothing coming up.
Really?
And recruitment consultants were saying, like, they do it a little bit differently here. And, and I tried. And I tell you what, it got to a point where I was like, shit, I'm using all my savings.
Yeah.
It was always like, all you need to do is get to Australia and then your work visa kicks in and you'll be earning some money. And it didn't happen. So, it caught us out a little bit. And I ended up doing some labouring for a guy that was gardening. And
I think that so our friend Griff, so he's got the same surname as Craig as well, Griffiths, but they're a different family. When he went to Australia, he lives there now. He's got a girlfriend and everything there now. But he went out there expecting his skills to fully transfer.
Yeah.
And I think he worked on a farm for about 6 months, just manual labour, lifting shit into the back of a truck. Basically,
fruit picking's a big thing out there.
He did that as well. Yeah.
So I got this little job, cash in hand, and did it for a while, and it was hard graft. I was up at 6 a.m, and I thought, wow, this is not what I signed up for.
Yeah.
But I thought, it's good to move out a little bit out of your comfort zone, just to do some manual graft. It was, at least it wasn't sitting in front
Out in the sun.
Yeah,
At least.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Out in the sun, and they love their pies over there. So at 10 o'clock every day, the guys would go for a smoke break, have a fag and a coffee and a pie. Anyway, so I did that throughout the summer. Then the winter kicked in, and it got a little bit cold, and
You're from the northeast, man. London. What's happened there is London made him soft. He's ended up getting some hard graft in the winter, and he's like, it's not for me. This I need to get back to
turned
the
us into
sun.
a fair weather person. Kyle. Seriously, you're not wrong there, mate. So but now the money I was earning in Sydney, I wasn't saving any. I was going out and I was spending on it. I mean, Sydney had some good nightlife. Yeah, it
Really?
had the big nightclub Home down in Darling Harbour. All the top DJs on there.
Is that the big harbour? Is that?
Yeah. So, and funnily enough, my mate I was telling you about, the Brummie that went out there 1 year earlier than me.
Yeah.
He had a penthouse flat in Sydney with a spare room.
Oh no!
So I rented that off him. He helped us out. We had a great time. So he was working in accountancy again, in finance, and we'd go out every week. Anyway, so
he's sitting there thinking, right? Geth is sitting there thinking, no, I'm about to pack my bag upstairs.
I can see him licking his lips with a glint in his eye.
That's why he hasn't spoke for the past 10-15 minutes, because he's working out.
I'm thinking,
how much shadow?
How do I get a dog passport? Get him to Australia.
Well,
but it's really bad in Australia at the minute.
Yeah. It's changed dramatically.
It has. It's not the same place.
They're all.
But if you need info on a dog passport, I can sort you out. That's what he's sitting there thinking. Penthouse apartments on the harbour. It's like,
he went to be quiet there, didn't he?
Like, his head's in the sky.
So anyway, I was running out of money, and I thought, right, I'm basically going to need to plan my next move, and I was, 60-40 in my mind. This might be the end of the travelling, but I hadn't lasted the year and a half. I think it was just over the 1 year. But I was expecting to work in Australia. It didn't happen. I'd got a bit of backpackers work, put a few dollars in my pocket, but not enough basically. So I thought, well, I'll have one last crack.
Yeah.
So I went down. Anyway, I think I was down to my last few $100s, and I thought, I need to get a move on. I did have a return ticket. There was open
so
return.
get out clause.
So I knew I could literally go down to the last $20 in my pocket, and I'd literally go home with me plane ticket and say I'd given it a good go. Anyway, I went to an internet cafe, and I went on the Paddy website, the Paddy scuba diving website. And there was a thing called the Paddy Pros page, which was for people qualified to like teach diving, dive master or above, with a qualification. And they had a job page, so I went on it. And the first job that came up, Paddy dive master needed with retail experience, and I just looked
Really?
and I was just like,
That's the universe asking
was
you
like-
that, isn't it?
that's karma. That I was
Yeah.
like, someone is looking down on me today. I was like, that job fits me absolutely
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah.
And I applied for it, and it turns out it was in the Caribbean, and it was in the Cayman Islands. Now, to be fair, at this point, I was fairly good at geography, but not on that side of the world. I was quite clued up on, the places where I'd been:
Yeah.
Asia Pacific, Australia.
I wouldn't be able to point out the Cayman Islands right now.
Yeah, and and so I'm chatting with the operations manager over email, and he's like, "It's in the Cayman Islands." And I'm like, "Yeah, okay." Then I said, "Listen, I've got about 6 or 7 years retail experience, and I've just passed me dive master qualification."
Yeah.
His reply, "Oh, perfect. How much do you want, and how soon can you get here?"
Aye.
And I just, threw a kind of
Yeah.
silent hooray. And Fraser, if you're listening, thanks a lot for that one, mate. It turns out he was from Blackpool.
Was he?
Really?
So, yeah.
And he didn't know you were. He didn't
No.
know your story or anything
No,
about it. No?
he'd not seen my CV or anything. So, I sent him my CV, and it's just like, "Yes, get yourself over here." And I'm like, "Right, I'm going to the Cayman Islands." I was like, "Oh, hang on a minute. Where the fuck is it?" So I went to the flight centre and asked the lady in there, and she was like, "Oh, do you know what?" She said, "I'm not sure either." So
That's why
did
everyone's
you ever go
stashing
on a
the money.
flight centre? They had that huge big map of the world on the wall.
Flight centres are not our era, mate.
No, yes, they don't have them anymore, do they?
We just went to Google.
Of course, yeah. But anyway, this was analog, Kyle. It was it was walking. So I mean, literally one wall of the shop was covered in a proper topographical 3D map of the
Yeah.
world, and she's standing there with her hand on her chin, and she's looking, and she's going, Cayman Islands, and one of the other lasses goes, "I think it's in the I think it's in the Caribbean, Carol." "Oh, the Caribbean." I'm like, and she pointed to it, and I'm like, and I'm like, "Where
Maybe.
are we?" And she points to Australia, and I'm like, it was
It's back to America, isn't it?
it was
Basically.
3/4 of the way around
Was
the
it?
world.
Yeah.
So
Fucking hell.
yeah, to sum it up in a nutshell, it was situated in between in between Jamaica and Cuba,
Yeah.
and it was an
Yeah.
hour's flight away from Miami.
Right.
So I got myself on a flight, which was Melbourne,
Yeah.
Bangkok, Frankfurt, London, Miami, Grand Cayman.
Fucking hell.
6
Oh,
stops. So
That's
said
fucking awful.
to Fraser, the ops manager, I was like, "Listen, mate, this is going to cost me an arm, and I'd like to get here." And he went, "Listen, Si, put it on your credit card, and we'll chat about it when you get there." So
Oh,
I thought,
happy
right.
days.
I was like,
Business class.
I'm off to the Caribbean. So yeah, off I went, and then all of a sudden,
So, hold up. So, coming from...
you probably didn't know that, did you?
No, so
No.
coming from Burnside Avenue, right? Which, don't get us wrong, we live on a beautiful coast, like a very underappreciated coastline in the northeast of England. But to go from that salty wind blasting your face on a November morning, right, to
Yeah.
on your way to the Caribbean
Yeah.
at how old were you then? Like coming up
That
30
was,
then, or
2004, probably.
it's about our age then, about 31, 32?
I was born in 73.
Oh, here we
And that was
go.
it.
Yeah, so about 32.
Yeah.
So
That's
you're about,
right, yeah.
So you're about our age now.
I had my 30th birthday party when I was on that island in Malaysia scuba diving.
Oh, right,
and
right,
it was
yeah.
about a year. Yeah, I was about 32.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're on your way to the Caribbean. So are you keeping in contact with home at this point? Just writing back, friends, family, all that. And what are they saying at the time when you're saying, lads, I'm because I know it would be if you disappear tomorrow, we'd all be, like when I went to the US, all yous are like, what's it like here? What's it like there? What's this like? Where they drive? Which side of the road they driving on? All that jazz.
So,
What were their thoughts on you going?
I think
basically?
I can't remember. I mean, there was no Facebook back then.
Do you know what? Yeah, you're right.
So you couldn't just do a status update saying I'm off to Cayman Islands.
Right, yeah.
You know, so I think it was probably a phone call and an email saying, I'm not coming home. I've managed to find a job.
This is where I'll be.
And I'm going to the Caribbean. And the big selling point about Grand Cayman was it was tax free. It's a tax haven.
Well, that's why nobody can find it though.
And the Queen's on the money, so it was a UK overseas crown colony, basically. The Queen's
Yeah.
on the money.
Yeah.
Every single dollar I earned, none was taken in income tax. And as I said to you before, it was all the Americans holidayed there. So there was a big tipping element to the
The
whole
rich
thing.
Americans as well, because they're checking on their overseas bank accounts as well. So it'll be all the guys who are
Fiddling.
in the money, want their tax accounts set
Well, I
on one
mean,
side.
it's an overseas tax haven, yeah. So there's a lot of, let's just say, some,
Characters.
yes, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of shell companies over there, a lot of law firms, and
So we're going to register the podcast, isn't it? Is that where we're going to register the podcast? Yeah.
a lot of limited companies trying to avoid the old inland revenue. But enough said on that one.
Yeah. So landed in the Cayman Islands, and
Yes.
then
Yeah, I landed there. The ops manager of the dive shop sorted me out some accommodation, and I went and checked in, and I was like, oh my God, a 4-bedroomed house on the beach. I mean, literally
to yourself.
beachfront. No, there was 2 of the diving instructors there, but it had I think it had 5 bedrooms. It was a huge house. It was to house big groups and parties, yeah.
So frat house then is
Kind of,
yeah.
You know, it wasn't.
I'm
it wasn't,
thinking American Pie too. when
Yeah,
they go to the
beach, yeah.
Aye.
I mean, there was, one of the rooms had 6 single beds in, so it was for
Like
a
parties.
scout holiday,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
yeah, exactly, a frat holiday.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I got there and literally slid open the patio door, and there's white sandy beach,
Oh, my
talcum
God.
powder, turquoise blue sea, and I'm like,
Get me to them Cayman Islands.
and I'm like, this is I'm liking this. So
Yeah.
and I, went to work, loved the job, great people, owned by an English guy and a guy from Texas. One Brit and one American, and did a few years there. And an interesting turn of events, another thing you probably don't know about, in 2005 or 2006, you remember Hurricane Ivan,
Oh yeah.
the one that destroyed New Orleans.
Oh yeah, definitely, yeah. Because they're still recovering
Well,
from that. Really,
before it hit New Orleans, it took a direct hit on Grand Cayman.
really?
And seriously, that's a
So you-
story.
on-
That's
you
a
on
story
an
for another night. I mean,
Yeah.
that was probably one of the most extreme experiences I've ever been through in my life. But
Shit.
the reason I mention it is that was the catalyst for basically saying
Get
my
me
time was up on that
yeah,
island.
yeah.
Get
It,
us away.
it destroyed the island. It destroyed the dive shop I worked for, the pier where the boats used to
Fuck.
park. It literally lifted my car up and blew it down the street and was
Yeah.
on,
Did
it,
it?
on its roof. Just to fill you in on that, I'd bought a Toyota Celica on the Friday.
Oh,
Celica?
Yeah, they were cool in them.
I know I was
days.
going to say it. Yeah, they were.
And said to me mate, I'd gone halves with my mate, my flatmate, Canadian lad. Anyway, I said, we need to insure this car, Mike. And he went, yeah, we do. He said, we could go to the pub and insure it on Monday. And I went, yeah, fuck it, we'll insure it on Monday. What happened? Friday night, a direct hit,
Really?
category 5 hurricane,
Shit.
165 mile an hour sustained winds. Honestly, I've never experienced anything like
So
it.
did you get in a bunker when that happened?
We should have done.
Well,
Dan,
you
we
didn't.
should have done.
On the
And you know-
beach, on the beach with your bottle of rum.
So the local broadcaster was on the radio, emergency broadcasting. There was a flag up. It basically went hurricane watch, and then another serious flag went up saying hurricane warning, evacuate homes, go to the hurricane bunker.
Yeah.
What did we do? We'll have a hurricane party.
Oh my god!
Went to the shop.
That's hot. That's the Peely Road in the Cayman Islands. That.
So went to the shop, bought a couple of cases of beer, a few bottles of vodka, and basically got drunk. And it was we were fairly tanked up. 9-10 o'clock. It was getting dark, and then someone's like, "Can you hear that wind getting up outside?" And we're like, "Yeah, I can. Oh, don't worry, it'll be all right." And then later, it just got worse and worse, and we were just like, "What the fuck have we done here?"
Aye.
All of our friends and colleagues were in the local, I think it was the village library or community centre,
hell.
because it was above sea level, and it was solid concrete.
Yeah.
We were in a beachfront condo No plywood on the windows.
Sea, innit?
We put gaffer tape on. Anyway, a long story short, the fucking ocean came in at about 5:30 in the morning. A wave about 15 feet high just shattered every single window
Did it?
in the apartment, and that was it. There was the sea was in the condo.
In the house.
Yeah, we had 2 cats. They were trying to hide in places where the seawater couldn't get them.
Yeah.
There was crabs. There was crabs hanging off the curtain.
Fucking
It
hell.
just the sea came in, yeah, and within seconds there was just a big bang.
That's
crash.
That's part of movie stuff, that,
Wait,
isn't it?
yeah, it is. And then the sea just sucked everything out. And I remember having to hang on to the breakfast bar.
Really?
Because the sea was like, I mean, a wave that big and it comes in, and it's just
It's
basically
gotta go back.
It's a vacuum. It's,
Yeah.
it's sucking everything out. And I remember it sucking like the microwave and the DVD player and, the sofa and the chairs. And I was like, shit. And we're like, someone looked at me, Karen, my South African friend, she went, Si, we shouldn't have stayed here for the hurricane, should we? And I was like, yeah, no shit, Karen.
I bet the alcohol had just totally wore off.
Oh,
by
it did,
then.
yeah. We completely. It was a sobering experience. Anyway, so we picked the pieces up. I mean, literally, the island was decimated. No water, no telephones. My mum didn't even know if I was alive.
Who helps the Cayman Islands in a situation? Is it US?
The British Royal Navy had a ship, had a destroyer in Caribbean waters, and basically deployed the troops.
Yeah.
And because they needed to instill martial law.
Really?
Because all the Jamaicans were running around
Looting.
with machetes
Yeah,
looting.
fuck.
Yeah, I mean, as you know, being military yourself, Kyle, it was it was extreme. There was mosquitoes everywhere. There wasn't a drop.
Yeah.
I remember walking into the sea 3 days after the hurricane with a bottle of VO5, and washing in the sea.
Really?
There was no clean water. No, yeah. We had enough clean water to drink, to survive,
And that was it.
and that was it. You couldn't. I mean, there was no boilers, there was no electric, there was no aircon, there was no heating. There was obviously no heating. It was too hot. But it was. We're just living completely primitive.
How long did that go for?
Probably 10 to 14 days.
Nice.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks just fucking
Yeah.
living like...
And I remember going to the airport, and there'd been like military police there with, MP5s.
Yeah.
Basically, you couldn't get in the airport unless you could prove that you had a passport for a country that was doing evacuation flights.
Really?
Yeah, so it was... I mean, by then, 8, 9, 10 days living in, it's like being in
Squalor, basically.
Basra or Lebanon or, somewhere that had just been heavily shelled or something.
Oh, yeah.
We did what we could, making fires and cooking fresh lobster.
Really?
Fish out of the sea and stuff like that. I mean, there was a great camaraderie and community
Everybody
spirit.
pulled together, yeah.
Yeah, the local Caribbean ladies cooking up big pots of rice and beans and fresh fish just on charcoal fires and stuff like that.
Wow.
It was it was nice. And so I temporarily came back to England.
Did you come back to the northeast or did you go back?
I went back. Well, the only evacuation flight I could get was Toronto in Canada, and the lad I was with, he went, "Fuck it, Simon, you're coming to mine." There's a lad from Trinidad and Tobago who his family were in Canada, in Toronto, and we're at the airport, and this is the bit that pisses us off. There was evacuation flights for about a dozen different countries.
Yeah.
British Airways didn't have one for the Brits.
Really?
Yeah, and it's a British Crown colony.
So you got the British Navy there, right? The Royal Navy there.
Yeah.
Their peacekeeping force.
Yep.
And they won't even get their own citizens out.
And there's no mechanism in place to get their own citizens out. So a bit of quick thinking. I think I was chatting with a mate of mine and an air stewardess from Air Canada, and she just went, "Listen, have you got a British passport?" And I went, "Yep." And she said, "Well, Britain and Canada are both part of the Commonwealth." She said, "I can't promise you, I can't guarantee it, but stand in that queue there and we'll try and get you on. Are you happy going to Toronto?"
Yeah.
And at that point, Kyle, I was just like, I don't care which country I go to.
Yeah.
I just need to get out of this fucking mosquito infested. I mean, paradise it was until the hurricane hit, and then it was just. I mean, it was like
jungle,
a Vietnam jungle.
Yeah.
No infrastructure. You couldn't get a telephone signal. No fresh water. You know, it was literally everyone was heading for the
Primal.
air. Yeah, it was very, very primal. So 5 hours later or whatever the flight time was, I'm sitting in a hot tub in Toronto with a cold bottle of beer, smoking a joint, and I thought, turned round and high-fived me mate, and I just went, oh, how times change. And I was like, talk about from one end of the spectrum to the other. So, yeah.
The weird thing, right, is you've been riding your luck this whole trip, right? The way it seems to me, and then eventually that luck is building up, and it's like, right, I want that back now. The universe is saying I want that back now.
Definitely a bit of payback, a bit of karma.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it was deserved, but it was a life-changing experience.
Yeah.
And coming close to kind of near death.
But maybe you appreciate that beer.
Which I'll talk a bit about later. You know, you learn to appreciate things and just be grateful for what you've got and how valuable kind of, you know, life is and friends and family. And
I bet at that time you weren't like, so you'll have been relying on like, say, the phone calls to your mum to tell like all your friends, oh, he's going here.
Yes.
He's going there. So you probably lost contact with like friends and family who you were maybe proper close with.
No, I did. I knew. I panicked because I knew my mum would be worrying because it was on the BBC News. She knew where I was living.
Yeah.
She knew there'd been a hurricane and she hadn't heard from us because there was no mobile phone masts. They'd just been absolutely destroyed. So I finally got in touch with her. Did a little spell in Toronto, Canada, a little spell in London, and then came up to the northeast, and then got an email from the same guy, the operations manager, that basically said, Simon, we've got some generators. We've got a little squad of workforce. Are you interested in coming back and helping to rebuild? And I'm like, yeah, you know, why not? In for a penny, in for a pound.
Yeah.
And that was a really nice experience. You know, first of all, we went back and I think they just had a couple of generators. We were living by candlelight, but we had fresh water. They'd moved on a little bit. You know, it wasn't as medieval as when I'd left.
Yeah.
You know, they'd bought some equipment, you know, they'd bought a few water tanks and stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, we got hammer and nails, screwdriver, you know, picking a shovel, and we were just doing a bit of graft. Yeah. And at the end of the day, we'd have a big barbecue on the beach because there was no gas plumbed in.
To be honest, it kind of sounds a little bit like heaven to get away from that.
It does.
I mean, it was completely unplugged and disconnected. Yeah. No social media, no 100%. Facebook, no nothing. Just literally sitting at the end of the day, watching the sunset.
Speaking of humans.
Yeah.
Rather than your phone all the time.
Yeah, and, you know, no electricity. You had to go to sleep a couple of hours after sunset.
Yeah.
So
you were rested.
We were fully rested, you know, working hard in the day and bed at 9 o'clock in the night, but up at 6:30 in the morning when the sun blasts through the windows. And, you know, we got the dive shop up and running. And it, you know, I obviously jumped a little bit there, but basically in the interim, I'd had some communication from a friend of mine that was in Thailand,
right?
Who'd said, Simon, I've got a business opportunity out in Thailand. Mm-hmm. Are you interested? And I think I'd just sold me flat in Sunderland.
Right.
The one I'd bought for 35 grand.
You probably owned it by then, did you?
No, not outright, but it had doubled.
Yeah.
You know, it might not sound a lot now, but I'd bought it for 35 and sold it for 70.
Yeah.
So I was, I had some cash in the bank, and I was, you know, after studying business studies at college, I always said that I just want to be my own boss.
Yeah.
I want to own my own business. And he offered me the chance. He's like, I'm doing...
Hold up. Me and Si are having a couple of beers, right? Get this drinking Corvonia.
Nah, You get two thingies, man. So
I would have
Opioid
having two.
addiction.
I thought he was on, what's that, like rappers drinking that like cough syrup that gets you wavy and that.
oh
right?
nah.
Right, anyway, sorry, Si.
Big up the Cavonia.
Yes, I mean, so that was the next carrot dangled in front of me
Yeah.
face kind of thing. Yeah. I love my job in the Cayman Islands. Made some good money there. But it was working for someone else.
Yeah.
I was an employee,
yeah.
and
I
then
get it.
obviously an opportunity comes along where it's like I can invest my money, own my own business, become my own boss. This is what I went to college for. This is what I want to do.
Yeah.
I have to take this opportunity. In hindsight, it was the fucking biggest wrong turn of my
Aye.
life. I don't regret anything, but everyone says you turned left at the Cayman Islands and went to Thailand, and you should have just stayed there. But
When you were in Australia, you turned left at the Cayman Islands, and it turned out to be the best decision you ever made. So how do you know that the next decision isn't going to be the best decision you ever make?
Well,
You're constantly chasing that next best.
that's it, Kyle. You don't,
thing,
and that's why the lesson I learned was don't have any regrets. Never regret what you do.
Nah.
If you make a wrong move,
Yeah.
just learn from the mistake and put it behind you and move on. Obviously, Thailand was a whole big chapter that had a
Huge impact.
a big turning point and a huge impact in my life. Obviously, which we'll cover in a bit. But yeah, looking back, everything was rosy up until the point where I left the Cayman Islands.
Yeah.
And, I have a good friend of mine who kind of
Do you stay in touch with a lot of the people you met along the way? still?
Yeah, I do, yeah.
Are you like kind of, because I see photos on your Facebook
Yeah.
now and again.
I'm a very
And it's-
very sociable person. I like.
And it's people who you tag them, and I'm like, round here, everybody knows everybody, don't they?
Yeah.
But I see you tag them saying like, "Happy birthday to so and so," and I'm like, "Who's that?" And I'll have a look, and it's clearly like in an apartment in a sunny,
Yeah.
palm trees outside.
yeah, you've all got the nice tans on your noses, a little bit of red, you all have the
Sunglasses marks.
drinks
yeah.
in your hands and stuff. So yeah,
No, I mean, when I left England, I turned into a warm weather person.
Yeah.
There was like,
Oh, man, I'm
Asia,
a
then
warm
Sydney, Australia, then
Don't blame you.
Queensland, then the Cayman Islands in the Caribbean, and then back to Thailand. So yeah, it's I mean, it was 2006, and I was off with the proceeds of the sale of my flat to open up a furniture shop.
Yeah, so that I was just about to say. So what the opportunity was?
So-
There was a business within a furniture shop.
Funnily enough, it was with a Peter Lee lad.
really?
Was it?
Yeah, yeah. I won't mention any names.
Yeah,
It's,
yeah, that's fine.
just in case. Anyway, yeah, it was with a local lad.
I didn't know that. Well, I'll
Yeah,
ask about that.
known him a while, and he's like,
So
hey,
did you know him from Peatley, or did you meet him while you were traveling?
no, I've known him since college.
College,
16,
aye.
17
Really?
years old. We used to go out Sunderland together, the Blue Monkey, Chambers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were on about this, weren't we? Because you were a Blue Monkey River.
You were
weren't
on about the new monkey, and I was like,
yeah, so
the new monkey.
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before. I'll have to.
that was why it was called the New Monkey. It was the new Blue Monkey, wasn't it? It was the,
Right,
it was the next.
okay.
It was the next phase of that ecstasy-driven
Chemical
Rave
generation,
chemical
dance
generation.
music. Yeah.
We used had the kind of golden era of the pure ecstasy where it was like real. What you see is
Real
what you get.
cowies.
What you ask for is what you're getting. Whereas we were on,
And very expensive.
yeah, we were on 5 for a tenner.
Yeah.
So do you know what I mean? That's a difference. The music changed slightly, but yeah.
I mean,
so
you get what you pay for, Kyle. Don't
you do. We were just on about that
times move on.
beforehand. You do get what you pay for.
So yeah, and so he's opened up a shop, and he's like, listen, I've opened up one shop, and I want to open up more. And the reason he invited me was he'd known I'd worked for all the big retailers in London, so I'd had experience of working in a big chain store, managing multiple stores with distribution, head office,
Yeah.
warehouse, not just one shop. And we'd known each other a long time, and he'd gone to college and done business studies. So yeah, he's like, do you fancy it? So we had a couple of conversations. It happened very quickly, and he hit me with the numbers, and I said, yeah. So I think initially I went out there for a holiday. I met him. So obviously I'd already backpacked through Thailand. So he'd opened up a shop in Koh Samui.
We're in Orden or Peatley here, right? We can hear the police chopper outside. I don't know.
you know what, for a
Hopefully
minute-
it doesn't come on the audio.
For a minute, I was going to say as the aircon kicked in, and I realised that you're not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy. I'm not in the Caribbean anymore.
But yeah, we're definitely in Peatley now. The police
So-
chopper's out on a Friday night.
So yeah, I mean that was me. You know, although I loved my job in the Cayman Islands, and I was earning good money and quite happy. When someone dangles a carrot in front of your face and said, "This is it. You can open up a business and be your own boss," you've got to grab it.
Yeah.
In which I did. So I went out there and opened up a furniture shop in Thailand with a lad from Peatley and another lad. And 2006 it was, and things went well.
Yeah.
For a few years, things went well. We were basically.
Was it like a 50-50?
I mean, you have to on paper you have to structure the business where a Thai or a Thai company owns 51% of the business.
Ah, really?
So you just got a clever lawyer.
Yeah.
There was actually 3 of us in it. There was me, the lad from Peatley, and another good friend of mine. So there was 3 of us. One of them was a silent partner, so there was 2 of us running it. We had Thai nominee directors on the company paperwork.
I mean, straight off the bat, sounds slightly. It does sound shady from the first, like, kind of explanation of it, doesn't it? Like
well, that's the way it had to be done, Kyle.
Is that how it is in Thailand, just as a whole? Is that how everybody does business?
Simply, yeah. No, there was nothing shady about that. If you were a foreigner and you were in Thailand, you could not own your own business.
Right.
You would have to. I mean, loads of people put it in their wife's name, but you basically you structured the paperwork so that it was 51% Thai owned, but then there was another document basically which they had signed, basically saying
writing off the profits.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We have no say in the running of this company. We just so. And it worked. There was never, hardly
More
ever
like Thai endorsement of the business.
Yeah, it was just a paperwork loophole, illegality. And it worked. So we were selling furniture to property developers. So a property developer would build a nice villa, and it was generally people from England, London, Manchester, maybe a few Scandinavians or Australians, and they'd come over and they'd buy a nice 3-bedroom villa. Because at the time, the foreign currencies had such a strong exchange rate to the Thai baht. So they could basically, for example, a coal miner that's got his redundancy money and comes over with 80 or 90 grand, all of a sudden can buy outright a 3-bedroom pool villa.
Right.
Yeah.
In paradise and not have any mortgage. So
that must have been the start of the boom then for,
it was,
for Thailand,
Yeah, I mean, they were getting a massive exchange rate. It's not like that anymore. But so, long story short, they'd buy the villa or the apartment, and then property developer would say, "Do you want to furnish it?
Yeah.
Go and see Simon next door in his furniture shop. He's a friend of mine. He'll look after you. He'll give you some discount." So yeah, it was like
word of mouth kind of thing. And
it was a bilateral agreement. It was the property developers helped me out.
The furniture, was it like luxury furniture, or was it just like just normal average?
It was like Thai Asian fusion furniture, like a lot of natural materials like rattan and bamboo. There was some people wanted completely modern furniture, which was like steel and glass and leather and chrome, but that wasn't us.
Yeah.
We'd go up to northern Thailand and up into the jungle and get the little craftsmen, like weaving shit by hand. And it just give, people wanted that real rustic kind of feel in their villa, nice Thai furniture. So yeah, we were selling that. I mean, when I went over, we had 1 shop, then it was 2. Then it was 3, then it was 4, then it was 5.
Jeez, I didn't realise.
Oh, did it? So it was like it's sort of chain.
At its peak, it got to 7 and a central warehouse, and it was flying, mate. I
didn't realise it was that big at all.
Yeah.
I thought it was just 1 shop.
I thought you were just like Dale Boys and Trotters as far as the podcast goes, but like just a little business going one shop basically.
It started basically similar to a franchise. So obviously my friend was the founder of it. He birthed the brand and the business model. I came over and opened the second one or the third one. His sister came over. So every time we found a new location, we found another partner and said, right, James,
you run that one.
do you want to come and own the one in Phuket? This is what it
sounds like
you.
an actually decent business model
So,
in that kind of environment at the time.
I mean, to grow from 1 to 7.
What, in a couple of years?
In probably 2.5 to 3.
Yeah.
It was quick.
No. Player.
Yeah, so living the life, you know.
So life's good again. So
Life's good again.
Up until now, that left turn to Thailand,
It's working.
It's
was
working,
the
yeah.
right decision,
It was a
wasn't it?
positive move,
It was the right decision.
Was it like, I would imagine 7 shops was making like a lot of money. Or
Yeah,
was it
But we were big into reinvesting it. We
straight into another
yeah,
shop?
we were not ones for kind of
Flashy.
lining our pockets. You know, I was just driving around in a bog standard pickup truck, at a small flat. You know, went out once or twice a week. You know, and it's pretty cheap to live there. We were all about growing the business. You know,
Yeah.
we invested money into bringing 40-foot containers in from China. We found some really nice furniture, and we're like, right, if we can get this in, the margins, you know, 300% or whatever, we'll make a lot more profit than if we bring it in from Thailand or manufactured domestically. So it was all like speculate to accumulate, spending money on the business.
That's pretty big business, though. So I wasn't realising it was that big. But did you realise it was that big a business?
No.
Where you're talking about import export now, which is different. Opening a furniture because you've touched on the fact you own a furniture shop.
Yeah.
I didn't realise it was that big business.
Did you just think it was a single one as
I
a sole
thought,
trader?
Yeah. I thought it was like maybe you and your friend had just went in business together, and it was like just one shop, and it was just like
Steady business.
it was just like something that you were happy with, just living and you know,
No,
just
I mean,
doing
then,
everyday life.
Yeah, as long as it veggies,
Yeah.
life's
You know,
good.
and there was a couple of us in the chain, in the group,
That's why I didn't
like
know.
that. But there was also a couple of dynamic people that were kind of like, no, let's maximize on this. Let's
Yeah.
open up another one. Let's get in all the expat locations because there's money to be made, you know. And there was a property boom in Thailand. Like they couldn't build enough houses, so people were buying houses. Obviously, the houses need furniture. We could provide it. So, but as a sole trader at one shop, we didn't have the buying power to go to China. But obviously, when you've got 3 or 4, you can now go to a Chinese manufacturer and say, let's have a 40-foot container. Let's have 500 of those chairs, 200 of those tables, 500 of those parasols. Boom, there's your container filled.
But
Yeah.
even for you, that's a big step up from what the
Scuba diving.
Yeah,
Like-
and
like-
even
like
your retail
dive-
experience.
dive-
But I'd worked for Marks and Spencer's in London. Which
Yeah,
had-
but you're buying the stuff that you know works. And I mean, I suppose you're all out there as well, but you're buying the stuff that's tried and tested, has been for decades. It's a method, isn't it, in London, that London era. But then out in Thailand, where people change their minds, tourists change their minds every 5 minutes. What they want.
You know, you're right, Kyle, but just to look at it from a different angle, retail, it's all about mechanics. The vehicle of importing and exporting, as long as the price works and the numbers, I could do it with beer or sofas or furniture.
Fair play.
Like when I went there, I said to my mate, I've never done furniture before. I've always worked in fashion. And then getting some advice on it, they were like, it's just product. It doesn't matter what it is. It could be bar stools and sun lounges that you're putting in the container, or it could be pairs of jeans and t-shirts, Simon. It's literally just a number. Obviously, you have to have knowledge of the market.
Yeah.
Which I did. You know, when I got there, I went round and I looked at all the shops, and I found out what they were selling.
So you did research, then. So
Of course.
there was background research.
Yeah, you do what's called a competitive shop, and you look what all your competitors are doing,
Right.
and then you basically find a product, and you go, right, I want to do that, but I'm going to do it 20% cheaper than them.
So you've took your experiences from working here.
Yes, exactly.
And you've just went right. You've had your little fun with something that you would, I would say, like it was a job that would be it's not a one that would earn a lot of money, but it's a job that you would probably be happy just to live this life, like in the Cayman Islands doing the scuba diving.
Exactly.
And then now, like you're like, right, business head, straight back on, boom, let's have a go.
Money now, isn't it?
No, it was. I mean, it was that nice job. It was nice to do for a couple of years. It was never going to be,
Sustainable.
a sustainable or a lifetime career.
Yeah.
And
it was basically backpacking in the Cayman Islands, whereas now you're seeing yourself
as a businessman.
really draw roots in Thailand.
Yeah. This was
obviously it did eventually.
This was, it was the next chapter to my life. It was like, right, you got to get your serious head on now because you're spending your fucking life savings.
Yeah.
So this is what you went to college for. You know.
Yeah.
Remember saying to the careers advisor when I was 17, I want to own my own business. Not really having a clue what I was saying, but went to college, got the diploma, and I thought, right, well, here you are. Someone's offered you it, so you've got the cash. Take it, and that was the start of the Thailand chapter.
Yeah, you're right. It takes us into the Thailand chapter kind of thing. So, the right swing in your life there that your life took. So, after a sequence of events, obviously we haven't got unlimited time. We can't go all night. So, but through a sequence of events, you found yourself jailed, locked up in a Thai prison.
Well, I mean, I'll just summarize that for you, Kyle. I got to Thailand in 2006, and by 2010, 4 years later, things were starting to run off the rails a little bit. Partying too hard. Take your hands off the wheel. Things snowballed out of control, and long story short, I ended up being convicted, possession of narcotics, and sent to a Thai prison. So that was where my life took a drastic turn of events. Yeah, absolutely devastating, and So
at that moment then, because you've gone from this kind of this living on the beach kind of style of life to then earn good money, and then when that hits you, now you're on your way to prison. What type of feelings were going through your mind then? Do you think, or did you not even know really what to expect?
At that time, I wasn't living well. I was partying a lot, so I don't really have a lot of recollection of right or wrong. It was there was no black or white. It was just a foggy grey haze. You just existing in this kind of wishy-washy life. Thinking, not really knowing right from wrong, and then thinking you're being careful and thinking you just, I'm all right, I'm having a good time, and then all of a sudden, boom, reality hits, and you're just like, fuck, I'm on my way to prison.
Is that when it hit you as well, on the way to prison, or was it your first night, or
instantly?
It was as soon as you were caught.
They knock on the door, and as soon as I saw a Thai police officer's face,
really that soon,
I just you get instantly a moment of clarity, and you just think, shit, what the fuck have I done?
Because I know for a fact a lot of people listening will know, well, not know, they will never know the feeling, but will kind of have in their mind that what they think they would think when it's an abroad or overseas police force. Because in the UK, it's like someone, a cop knocks at your door. You see the videos, you just stick your fingers up at them, don't you? It's like, but over there, it's serious, and it's no longer that. It's just dread.
No, exactly that. It's horrifying when you're thousands of miles away from home, and a foreign police officer knocks on your door, and you know that what's coming is a serious charge. Then, I think I nearly passed out. I got black circles in my eyes. I got tunnel vision, and just thought, whoa, fuck. And I was in an apartment block which was, I don't know, 15, 20 stories high, and I was on the 11th floor.
Oh, fuck, so that take you all the way down as well.
No, that wasn't what I was going to say, Kyle. I glanced at the balcony.
Oh, did you?
Really?
Yeah.
Fuck me.
Well, you haven't. I mean, it was only for a split second, but
Well, it would
In-
cross,
in-
it does
Your
cross your
escape route,
mind.
isn't it?
yeah, you know, the police are standing at the door, and it's fight or flight.
Yeah.
You look, and it's the police are standing at the door, and there's a balcony there and a swimming pool. And I have to admit, for a split second,
You thought you could do it.
My brain told me, jump off the
It's
balcony. You might land in the swimming pool,
Oh.
and if you don't, then
At
it
least
is
the problem's dealt with.
exactly.
Yeah.
Won't go too much into
Yeah.
that, but you kind of get the picture of
Yeah.
of the sort of the moment
The
of horror,
seriousness.
the
Yeah.
seriousness. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, you know it. the
Because
shit-
I think in this country, if you, I mean, I can't speak. Obviously, I haven't been to jail in this country or anything like that. But the seriousness probably just hits you when you land in jail, and it's like, right, the door bangs shut, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm cut off from everybody I love, right? But when you're in a country, like we've just said, when you're in a country like that, you know it's not going to be playing pool on the balcony, kind of crack once you get in there. So
especially because you don't talk that language, so you're gonna go into a place where it's like, I've got to fucking
yeah, it's very alien. You know, just to jump back to the point you were saying about when does it hit you, and yeah, you're right. It was actually in the police cell,
yeah,
because from the moment of arrest, you're wired. You know the adrenaline's running
Just
through
like
you.
that.
It's like you're full of electric.
yeah,
The police are there. You're thinking, what's going to happen next? You know, obviously there's the being hauled off down the station in the interview and the interrogation and everything. But it's that moment in time when they deposit you in the police cell, they lock the door and they walk away.
Yeah.
And at that point you think, fuck, now I'm on my own.
it's you and your thoughts,
No.
then, isn't it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And yeah, you
Was
and your thoughts is
It's a dangerous place
it's
to be.
a very
that.
powerful, dangerous feeling and emotion to go through. And I'm like, that's at that point when you think, fuck, I'm all alone. I wish I had me mates and me mum
Yeah.
and me family.
Yeah.
the
And you just, you know, I probably shed a few tears and just thought to myself, what the fuck have you done, Simon?
So
You fucking
I'm guessing
idiot.
there's no first phone call home or anything like that. Do you know
Were
what I mean?
the, were the
whereas
police
in-
like, were the brute, like, so obviously when you come here and you get arrested, like, obviously the police is like fucking
They've gotta follow
hunky
rules.
dory, yeah, they've got
Yeah.
to follow rules. But I like, it's, you know, when you go yourself, when you go to Benidorm or you go, and the guardian is just like,
Kick fuck
you
out, yeah.
don't fucking mess with them,
Yeah.
like, because they don't give a fuck. Like, was that the same type of crack with the Thai police?
No, they certainly don't follow the
Nah.
same rule book.
especially for the type of charge you're under as well. Because am I wrong that it's usually shoot on sight policy if you get caught with anything in your hands kind of thing?
That was a
Or is that a
policy.
myth?
That was a policy that was, you know, off the record, enacted back in, I think, 2003 when Thaksin was in power,
Right.
and because he knew the problem. He knew the country had a drug problem. Obviously, it was the hub of Southeast Asia, the Golden Triangle,
Yeah.
and normal police methods weren't working,
Yeah.
arresting people. So he just kind of turned around and to present to, I think it was the DEA in America,
Yeah.
to the rest of the world, we'll help you with the fight on drugs. So his policy was shoot on sight,
Yeah.
and they literally went out on the streets, and if someone went, that's a drug dealer, they didn't ask any questions. They just
They
pulled
just
a
shot
fucking
them.
pistol
Fuck
and
me.
shot them. Yeah, I mean, thank God I wasn't there then. It was a few years before I got there.
Really? Oh, so the
But-
policy had kind of changed, but it was still pretty hard
Yeah,
line.
it was a real kind of extreme period of a couple of years that thank God didn't last for very long.
Yeah.
But I met people inside. I wrote to people inside that were arrested during that era, and it was fucking brutal. It was zero tolerance.
Yeah.
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 So being arrested on your kind of way to jail. So we were just speaking about like the kind of experience in jail and how far we want to go into it. But more than anything, it's more. You could probably talk about all night about your experiences every day in day
Yeah,
out for how long? So how long were you in?
Well, I
in
mean,
jail for?
you know, I'll give you a kind of diluted, summarised version because, as you say, to go into every single
So
stuff.
I'm saying, was it 8-9 years?
It was I got sentenced to 15 and served just under 9.
Yeah.
Like 8 years,
So-
8 or something.
day in day out in that. I mean, we could probably be sat here for 3 or 4 days, getting you kind of running. But night one,
Yeah.
night one, not in the actual jail you were in.
Yeah.
That you spent. Did you spend your whole time in the same jail?
No.
No. So the first jail you're in, the first real prison. I don't, because I understand as well how taxing this probably is on you. We've just been talking about how taxing it is on you emotionally as well. But the first night, what was that like? The first night getting dropped in there, and
The first night, I just remember being extremely tired. Obviously,
Yeah.
from the point of arrest, the sequence of events before you're actually deposited in the jail, it lasts about 2.5, 3 days.
Right.
So you've not slept. Obviously, you're coming down from whatever high you were on. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you're withdrawn. You've had no sleep. You've not showered. And I remember having the feeling of like, I'm absolutely knackered.
just put us somewhere.
Just put us somewhere. I just
Yeah.
want to be horizontal.
Yeah.
I want to take these leg irons off, these rusty
So
shackles. that
they're
they've got.
fucking like proper shackles on you.
Yeah,
aren't they?
yeah. No, it's medieval, mate. You know, handcuffs on the wrists, or handcuffed round the ankle. And but the problem is the arrival cell in the prison that houses all the new people. It's just filth. There's no blankets. There's no beds.
Yeah.
It's the worst. It's called the arrival cell, and you're there for like I think 1 or 2 nights, and then you move to one that's slightly better, and then you get allocated a normal cell. But you know, I didn't have a pillow. I think I just grabbed the nearest plastic water bottle,
Yeah.
and I wound my t-shirt around it, and I couldn't even get in the fetal position because the fetal position takes up too much.
So how many people was in the cell?
They were built for 30 and there was about 65 in.
Jesus
Fucking
Christ.
hell.
So you couldn't even lie on your back and be shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah.
They had to turn you on your side, and you had to sleep ramrod straight on your
Like
left
on your shoulder. Yeah.
And I remember having to tap the German guy next to me and saying, "Excuse me, mate, we need to turn over," and we'd have to turn over in unison. Yeah,
Fucking hell,
and
man.
his nose was like touching the back of my head, or vice versa, and breathing on each other. You know, it was just. I mean, thank God I was so exhausted and tired. I did at some point black out. I got a few hours sleep.
Yeah.
You know, only for some guard to come round at 6 o'clock in the morning, wrapping his nightstick on the bars and shouting, "Get up!" And that was it. Okay,
Prison life.
let's go down and get this first day in prison.
So
Yeah.
one of the things we were just on about, like the film about and stuff, but it's got its own little economy, hasn't it? Inside of those prisons, like it's like a fully fledged.
Yeah.
Basically, the guards stand on the outside,
Yeah.
and the prison runs itself.
The prison is
However-
not ran by the guards.
Yeah.
They I mean, if you think about the prison guard to prison number ratios, I think it's something like 30-1.
So really.
If you ever wanted to, storm the guards and have a riot, you would massively.
So
outnumber.
why don't they then? What's that? Is it?
It's not in the Thai culture.
Yeah.
They,
I bet you get fucked for that.
you would.
Would it just be like straight
Punishable
away,
by
gone?
death, maybe?
Yeah.
I mean, the level of capital punishment in there, physical, wrapped over the knuckles, over the back. I mean, I've seen Thai prisoners get just the shit kicked out of them with fists and feet and
Yeah.
truncheons and stuff.
Yeah.
So there's no home office rules like in England,
Yeah.
Well, we can't
So-
do that because
So there's a foreigner in there, right? So you've got obviously you probably Thai classes of people.
Oh, yeah,
who
I
are,
mean,
people who are connected or not connected. Then you
Definitely.
kind of maybe the people on similar charges to you, but are Thai. And then you've got Europeans are probably seeing even a lower class than that, haven't they?
I mean, yeah, there was all right. There was, let's say, there was three kind of grey lines drawn. There was the Thais. Obviously, there were the Thais. The alpha males, the apex predator.
Yeah.
And you could never ever come over and above those.
Yeah.
Then jumping to the bottom, there was like the people from other neighbouring Southeast Asian countries. So at the bottom of the food chain, the Thais really looked down upon the people from Cambodia, Laos and Burma.
Yeah.
They were just like third-class citizens, and they were there to fucking wash the dishes, wash the clothes,
Yeah.
clean up the mess hall,
Yeah.
etc., etc. Then in the middle, you had the batch of foreigners. Now, that was kind of subdivided again. Being an English-speaking white foreigner, the Thais called them Phalang, which is just a bastardization of the word foreigner.
Yeah,
They couldn't
yeah,
say
yeah.
the word foreigner, so we were known as Phalangs.
Yeah.
And a Phalang, that wouldn't really include the black Africans.
Right.
That was basically Scandinavians, Aussies, Brits,
Yeah.
white Europeans.
Yeah.
You know, they were kind of number two in the pecking order. Then you'd have all the other foreigners like Nigerians, you know, people from Liberia, Ghana, all of the, or must 15 to 20 African nations in there. And there was
Yeah.
a lot of them. They were the number two population after the Thais.
Really?
Were there?
Yeah. There was a lot of Africans in there.
Is there a lot of there's a lot of Africans in Thailand as a whole then?
Yeah.
When you were living there?
Yeah.
All right.
I mean, we used to say as a
Strange, that.
kind of bit of a joke that, you know, wherever there's kind of money to be made or contraband money to be made, you'll see.
There's a funny
Africans
thing,
in
right?
there.
And it was Idril Adesanya, who's a UFC fighter, and he was Nigerian. He was like, Nigerians are number one in the world for if there's a quick buck to be made, or if there's a buck to be made, the Nigerians will be there,
And it's
they'll
true,
be
Kyle.
making the
It
buck.
is true.
Yeah.
Someone once said to me, "Oh, you know,
They're like very good businessmen. Like
Yeah.
they know where they see the market gaps, basically. Yeah.
someone once said to me, you know, I think it was a conversation, something along the lines of, when you get out of prison, you can't come back to Thailand. Would you ever come to Southeast Asia?" And one of the lads said, "Yeah, come back. I fancy coming to Burma." And someone went, "Is there money to be made in Burma?" And another lad went, "There's Nigerians there." If there's Nigerians in Burma,
There's money to
there's
be
money
made.
to be made. Yeah, I'd never thought of it like that. But yeah, they
play.
do have a good
A
nose
knack.
for sniffing out. Yeah.
knack for it. Yeah.
You know, I once asked a Nigerian that, and he's like, "Well, there's just no good jobs in our country. There's not much money to be made." He goes,
We search for the money.
"So we are hustlers. We hustle. And they do, you know." And I've you know, met a lot of nice Nigerians. They're
Yeah.
very Christian. That, you know, a lot of them have got
Yeah.
good hearts. But I mean, they can be ruthless. They're streetwise, and
Yeah,
they can take care of themselves. For
Yeah.
sure, yeah.
So I thought so you're not in the worst position possible in that prison. You're kind of sitting in the pecking orders. How does that fare on not to go into like the nitty gritty, but on a day-to-day basis? How was life? Was it dangerous? Were you looking over your shoulder constantly, or was it?
No, not from a violence point of view. The only thing you had to be careful of was if the Thais saw that you had money.
Yeah,
So if they saw you going to the visit room and having a visitor on the Tuesday, and then on Wednesday you're picking up the food and groceries that your family's bought you, for example,
yeah,
all of a sudden
they're hanging around.
you make a lot of new friends.
Yeah.
So, you know, "Hey, Mr. Simon, how are you?" You know, "Hang on, mate, you never fucking looked at me twice yesterday, but now you want to be my best friend because you've seen I've got, you know, a pack of Coca-Cola and a box of noodles and a couple of cream cakes." You know what I mean? So
even
Did the
sorry, Geth, go on.
the so you kind of touched on it when we sort of briefly spoke the other day, going back to the economy, did you get the better jobs than say a Cambodian?
Well, I mean,
how did the job system work?
there was the job thing came up a lot later, and it didn't often happen in the early stages of someone's imprisonment. Maybe. I mean, you think of it from the prison's point of view. They don't want to invest in someone in terms of training them for a job and giving them a job if they've not got a sentence, and they could be going home on bail, or they could be going to court and getting a 30-day sentence. So it was, once someone was sentenced with a decent amount of years, then they'd be looked at and go, what can this guy do?
Kind of thing. Yeah.
Well, yeah, he's going to be a long time. So he's going to want a job to kind of settle himself in and calm himself down and get himself a comfortable life. What skills has he got to offer? So I got one of the official jobs, which was in the library for the education department. So I had an official job. I had an official card that hung around my neck and said that what I was. In terms of like the Burmese and the Lao, they had unofficial jobs within the ecosystem, like washing clothes for people.
Yeah.
So Mr. Burma comes along and says, I'll wash your clothes for a packet of cigarettes a week. So every day you could give him one T-shirt, one shorts, and he would wash your clothes at 10 in the morning, and by 3 in the afternoon he would hand them back to you.
Yeah.
And at the end of the week he'd get his packet of cigarettes.
Right.
He would then go around to probably a Thai guy that had a little market stall that sold things that would only normally be on sale for people that had money in their account.
Yeah.
But obviously they're being paid in a like a decentralized currency.
Yeah,
They're being paid in a non-monetary, so it's basically cigarettes.
Yeah.
And there was a fee for it, and it was about 75% of the face value. So what I could buy with, £2 of my actual Thai money, they would only get like about £1.20 or £1.30,
Right.
Yeah.
because it's on the black market, because the Thai guy that's selling it has to make a profit.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was a whole little, it took a while to kind of get your head around. I remember the first time, before my money came into my account, I went to buy something from one of these little market traders, and I'm like, how much is this? And he's like, well, it's not just that, it's that and that and that, and I'll group them together and it's one packet of cigarettes. And I crunched the numbers in my head and I'm like, but that's only 50 baht, and cigarettes are 80 baht, and he's like,
yeah.
Well,
Tough.
yeah, that's my profit.
Yeah.
Their famous tagline, their famous answer, which was used a lot, was, "This is Thailand." And that was an answer for a lot of them.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, and he's like, "Not same your country." So obviously it was in the early days for me. So I'm still climbing my way up the learning curve.
Yeah.
And I'd speak to another foreigner in there, and someone that there was always someone there to give you the lowdown. This is how it works.
Yeah.
This is what you need to do. But one of the first ever questions was, "Have you got a visitor?" Basically, that changed the whole dynamic.
So they're after something. I'll give you this advice, but have you got a visitor to get that kind of money later down the line, and then I'm going to have a friend who's going to have stuff.
Yeah, I mean,
to
but
give us,
this could be a fellow Englishman that's not on the scrounge for something. He's just basically laying it out to us and saying, "This is how it'll be if you've got money."
Yeah, I get you.
This is what you'll have to do.
I get you.
If you don't have money, as in, for example, say if you've got a visitor and money, you can pay this ladyboy to do your laundry, and you can pay this for this XYZ. But if you don't have money, then you're going to have to go and borrow that guy's bucket and do your own laundry, and then to get water out the tap, you're going to have to befriend that guy and get water out the tap.
Right.
And then after that, you're going to have to buy some string and tie it up there to dry your clothes on. And I was just like, fucking hell. It was a lot to think about, things that you just, you wouldn't consider in a normal world.
Curve.
I mean, space to dry laundry. I think at one point I invested and I bought myself a 15-litre bucket, which was like one of them large emulsion tubs.
Yeah.
15 packets of cigarettes.
Jesus.
So then I started up my own laundry business.
Yeah.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's our business. That's our business brain kicking back in there. Like,
And after a couple of days, because I'd gotten myself a job in the library in the education department, which we had our own tap. Water was in big, demand and very scarce supply there. So if you had access to a tap and a bucket and water, you were
that is that business brain kicking in again, though.
supply and demand.
Supply and demand.
Yeah,
That's
you
it.
know,
That's all.
I remember
it is.
learning that in my economics lesson at college in PLE.
yeah.
But anyway, so long story short, I shelled out 15 packets of cigarettes for a bucket, and I think I ended up subcontracting the actual hands-on graft.
So you became your boss again.
Yes. And I'm like, okay, I've got 3 customers here that are going to pay me, a packet of cigarettes a week. I'll keep 2. And I gave another
one to the labourers.
One to the labourer, yeah. And that's literally how it went. And they
So
were
as
happy
far
with
as
that.
so far as ecosystems go, it's got its own ecosystem. You built your own ecosystem. You built your own like kind of empire within the
It's
the
just an
ecosystem.
agent, a middleman, putting consumers in contact with suppliers.
Well, as the years tick by, we spoke about it a little bit. You start coming to this little bubble because after the first 6 months, a year, 2 years goes by, you don't realise that time's ticking by. But then as 3, 4, 5 rolls around, it's like, what do you think? What do you think about home? Are you in contact with your family and friends back home? Or
Yes,
I know a lot of people wrote you and stuff.
Yeah, it took a while to get off the ground. Initially, there was the whole people didn't know where I was.
Yeah.
Disbelief. Or where is he? I've heard this. Is it true? Confirmation of the rumours.
Yeah.
So after a couple of months, everyone's, yes, it's true. He's in there. And this is his address. I think I finally got word out to someone. Give them the password to me Facebook. And they basically went, listen,
Quick status.
quick status update. This is what's happened to Simon. He'd really like letters from you. This is the address. He needs your help. And honestly, the response was overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got lots of letters, and it really put a smile on my face.
Was Craig one of the lads who sent you a letter as well? Craig Lynch, top bloke as well. Obviously,
I mean, I think at one point,
Craig Lynch.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
yeah.
who his mum was my next door neighbour.
Oh,
I
really?
later found out at a much later date
right.
when I came back that that's who was living there. Anyway, that's another story. But
Yeah.
no, I got a printout which was 3 or 4 pages long on my birthday after about, it was pretty much a year or 2 in. And it was just loads of Facebook comments from people in Horden and Peterlee that I hadn't heard from. You know, people like Stewie Robinson.
Yeah.
People that used to drink in all the working men's clubs in Horden Big Club. And it was just nice to see, read them one after the other, thinking, God, I haven't heard from her or him for ages.
It's that kind of thing starts off as positivity, right? So you read them, but then after you've finished reading them, I know for a fact what comes after that. The reason being, and I'm not comparing at all, but I've obviously been on deployment. People will text you or send you a letter or send you a little package that's got some shower gel in it and that.
Yeah.
And when you open it, it's total excitement. I've got a package from home. Once it's opened, it's like, I'm not home.
Yeah.
No, you hit the nail on the head there, Kyle. And I'd forgotten that people in the military would obviously have similar experiences.
Because we just, I know it's not the same situation, but we live in one little room the whole time.
It is, mate. Don't put it down. It completely is. It's a moment of enjoyment, excitement, and you love it. But after becomes a withdrawal, an anticlimax.
Yeah.
And I remember in the first prison I was in, the mail call was only once a week, and I'd look forward to it. And they never kept the day the same. So 1 week it could be on a Monday, and another day it could be on a Wednesday or a Thursday. So you were literally like a cat on hot bricks all week.
Yeah, I understand that.
And
totally,
then they'd call your name, and you'd go there, and you'd be absolutely buzzing, and you'd be sitting, and obviously it was all foreigners. We used to get a separate mail call in the time.
Yeah.
So you'd be sitting there with all the lads, and be like, and the first lad would come out, and I'd go, all right, Reece, how many did you get today? And he'd be like holding up 3 big brown envelopes and go,
Yeah.
I've got an FHM and a Men's Health magazine.
Yeah.
I'd be like, let us read that after you, mate.
Yeah.
no
Also, it
problem.
was like magazines, what we're getting sent as well.
Yeah, it occasionally they allowed them in. I mean, not all the time. We had a proper headache with that. But first it was letters, and I think I was the first one. I said to my mum, I said, listen, let's push the envelope a little bit here. I went, send us just a little magazine, the littlest magazine you can find. I think it was like Reader's Digest or something.
Yeah.
And I, didn't care what
Yeah.
content
To get some
was.
update
It
of
was
life.
that's exactly a little snapshot of the outside world in the English language. And mate, at first I got it in and I lapped it up. I read it
Really?
from cover to cover twice. I read every single advert. I read
Yeah.
the fucking
Oh,
page
man, that's
numbers
fucking-
and everything. And there was about, no word of a lie, a dozen people queued. It was after you, Si. It was after you.
Yeah.
Remember writing me mum a letter. I'm like, success. We got it in.
Yeah.
Subscribe for a year and send it every month. So that was it. Now the floodgates opened, and I remember for the first few years it was National Geographic, Reader's Digest, and Men's Health.
Yeah.
Then another lad from a different country would get 3 different magazines. So we had this little, arrangement of magazine
You
swapping.
use
It was-
mine, I'll use yours
Yeah.
type of thing.
it was just so nice. But anyway, back to the point. Yeah, it was, it was like an endorphin overload. I remember
Yeah.
one day sitting there after, it wasn't a mail drop, it was an embassy visit. So I'd had a letter from my mum, I had some stamps and envelopes, I had 3 magazines, a big email that was compiled by like 4 different friends, a couple of pens, some writing paper, and I think a jar of Centrum vitamins. Yeah, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah.
so it's like
Christmas.
It's like
Saturday?
Christmas Day, and I've gone back to my little desk in the library, and I'm just stood there, and I've got complete like sensory overload.
Yeah.
I just didn't know. And one of the lads walked past me. All right, Si, doing all right there? Like, have you just had an embassy visit? And I'm like, yeah. And they're like, oh, straight over. What have you got? And I'm just like, fuck off,
Hoarding
get
it.
away. I'm not hoarding. I'll show you later. And then, as you said, Kyle, a couple of hours later, maybe even just 20 minutes later,
It is quite quick.
it is. The adrenaline, the endorphins, they
Yeah.
subside, and you deflate, and then you just start thinking, oh well, that's it, and another 7 days to wait.
Yeah.
But I would absolutely maximize and wring the life out of that mail. I'd read the same letter 3 times.
Yeah.
I'd read the magazine once, I'd pass it to a mate, and I'd read it again. I'd especially the letters from my mum.
Yeah.
I'd read them, then I'd read them again, then read them again. Then I'd write. I kept a prison diary. I'd
Yeah.
write about in my diary how I felt after receiving those gifts and receiving those letters.
Really.
And
Do you
after
still have the diary?
I wrote 4 prison diaries, and only 2 made it out of prison.
Did
One,
they?
one was confiscated by an officer that didn't want me to take it out, and the second one was stolen in the police station after me release. So I'd kept it for 9 years.
Sounds a bit dodgy, that one.
And yeah, I picked up my bag and I'm like, oh no, sorry, the whole bag went missing. I'm like, I've got a backpack and a carrier bag. Where's my carrier bag? And the police like, I don't know. Have a look. And I looked 3 times.
Yeah.
It honestly wasn't there. And I'm handcuffed to like 15 people going from the police station to immigration to be deported.
Right.
And I'm like, I'm gutted because I know my diary's in there, and I'm just like, fucking hell, I hung on to that from
It was your
2000,
lifeblood.
from 2012. It had pictures in, it had cutouts in, it had deep emotional,
Yeah.
dark feelings in. It had a couple of times we managed to get hold of a camera and take some pictures inside the prison. It had those in. It had, it was just...
It's a decade of memories, isn't it, really?
It was, and I was absolutely distraught. And then I just had to kind of look on the bright side and go, mate, come on, you've got your freedom.
Yeah.
All that was, it was a snapshot of a very dark time. And although it felt like a good idea to keep it at the time, and I thought maybe one day I'll write a book, I just thought, fuck it, mate, you've got bigger fish to fry now.
Yeah,
And,
100%.
Just get on first.
I've still got a couple of them, and luckily I'd copied all the names and addresses out of the one that was stolen into that. So I had all the contact details. All that was missing was, the narrative, the emotional feelings.
Yeah.
And it was not the first diary, but it was the second one. So it was around about the time of like my sentencing and my prison change. So it was the middle of the whole experience. But no, I was gutted, but I just got over it and put it behind us and thought, there's nothing you can do about it. What am I going to do? Go and report it stolen to the police. Said to the policeman, listen, if it shows up, email this email address.
Yeah.
And it never did, but
like we said, so this episode we did want to focus on more the kind of positive change you've made in your life. So we were saying we had a little break, and we were saying like how we might revisit the actual full prison time, because I think that's an episode in itself. Just if we just started from there, isn't it? Really,
definitely, mate. There's literally there's hours of conversation. So go on, jump forward to.
So you live in that kind of you live in that kind of life, right? Where you're hanging on these. You live in. Always in the cell of 60. So that's the cell you lived in.
Well, what? Because you jumped from one prison to the other.
Yeah, no, just to jump in a little bit there and give you a quick update on. As I slowly worked my way up the hierarchy, based on my job.
Yeah.
And obviously, generally the pecking order is how long you've been in there.
Right.
So when you're new to the room, you get the worst sleeping space
there,
and it's next to the toilet. Simple as that.
How close?
Your shoulders up against the wall. So
it's like underneath the toilet, basically.
It's a wall which is basically hip height.
Oh yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah,
it's a squat toilet.
Yeah, a little squat toilet. Yeah.
So there's a wall that high, and the toilet's there. I know the listeners obviously won't be able to see this, but and there's a block wall which is tiled, and you're on the other side.
Yeah.
So you can hear people, pissing. You can hear water running. You can hear.
But
people.
you're close enough.
I mean, there was definitely a smell, and
one toilet in the cell as well.
Yeah,
and you were saying as well, people have wanks in that door.
Yeah, there was a fucking lot of masturbation.
Was there?
I mean, that's not like
that's worse. I'd rather somebody had a shit next to us than sat there masturbating, because there's no material, I'm guessing.
Well, there was.
Oh, was there a little bit of snuff in there? Was there?
Yeah, there was. It came from where I worked as well.
Yeah.
So obviously, just to fill in the gap here, the library was part of the education department. The education department had a couple of computers and a couple of printers. So reading between the lines, a flash drive came in from a corrupt guard that had some, illicit sexy material.
Yeah.
He was paid.
Oh,
everyone gets a bite of the cherry, and he'd be paid by one of the Thai mafia room bosses. They'll be given maybe 20 packets of cigarettes to bring that in, and then those pictures would be printed out and copied and farmed out, and then stuck in a little book and resold. So yeah, there was a little.
So they just make their own porn mags, basically.
Basically,
in prison,
done on a fucking an inkjet printer, stuck into an old library book.
It's fucking mad to think, right? What you can get in a British jail now, you could probably just get. They've got TVs and shit, so they can watch whatever they want on. And your user basically make them print out scrapbooks, the porn scrapbooks.
Exactly, that's what it was.
And you're all lying next to the toilet that they're all masturbating.
No, yeah, I mean, obviously I said that the wall surrounding the toilet was only 2.5, 3 foot high. I remember going to the toilet one night, having particularly bad guts, or obviously eating something, that didn't agree with us, and that often happened in a Thai prison. And seriously needing, to empty my bowels at 3 a.m, and I've wandered up to the toilet at the back with sleepy eyes, one eye closed, and kind of got there and looked up and thought, there's the person there. Oh shit, I'm gonna have to wait a few minutes until he comes out, and the fog clears in my eyes, and I look up, and his head's shaking, and I'm like, well, why is his head shaking? And I look at him again, and he makes full eye contact with us, and he's looking at me, and I'm like, he's like, all right, Si, how you doing? I'm just like, oh, you know, thinking this guy's not having a shit here. He's fucking jerking off. So turn round and you know, he doesn't give a shit. Like turn around, give him a bit of privacy. But no, yeah, it was brutal. It was just overcrowded. You could never get. There was always a queue for the toilet, and you know, depending on what time of night it was people jerking off in the toilet. So you desensitise to it after a while.
Yeah.
You know, it's
institutionalized, aren't you? But
well, yeah. I mean, it was either that or have a wet dream.
Yeah.
And the latter is not a nice experience, you know. You asleep in a fucking cell with 65 men having a dream, and then all of a sudden there's an explosion in your pants, and you're just like, oh no. I mean, then
you can't really clean yourself in the middle
well,
of the night.
exactly.
Yeah.
So what do? You know, the water had been switched off at that point. There's only enough emergency water to like wipe yourself if you need to go and, you know, empty your bowels kind of thing. So it was just a headache, and you know, it just became a way of life.
Yeah,
you know?
never go to sleep with a loaded gun, basically.
Like that, mate. You know, I held off for as long as I could. I did have a lot of accidents in my sleep, but that's all I'm prepared to go on that one. Like, it's definitely a story for another day. That one.
So you work with the hierarchy, and towards the end of your prison sentence, you'd been sentenced to 15. Did you see yourself getting out before 15 or not? Was there ever a mention of you getting out before 15?
Because I knew the way, you know, pretty much as soon as you go in there, you do your research. It's like in England, you know, if you get sentenced to 10, you serve 6. It's about 2/3. But in Thailand, there was no set calculation. It was basically, you'll get some king's amnesties. Right. So not every year, but on certain auspicious occasions, like a coronation, a king's birthday, kind of thing, a jubilee, a queen's birthday, the birth of the crown prince, etc., etc. I mean, they were completely random. You couldn't plan them, but you'd know that with a 15-year sentence, you'd probably get 2 or 3 amnesties that would knock a year and a half off each time. Yeah. And obviously, I'd researched it. I literally went over and asked someone, do you know anyone with a 15-year sentence? How much did they serve? And they're like, 9 year, 10 year, 8 year. So, you know, you realise that it's going to be scaled down a bit. But to get back on point, basically, after 4 years, I started to stagnate a little bit. Yeah. I had my job in the library, and I wasn't in Bangkok. I was still in Pattaya, and it was a small provincial prison, and I was writing to friends in other prisons, and I just needed a reboot. I needed a change of scenery. Yeah. I was getting a little bit stir crazy. Yeah. All the things that I like worked for to get the job, the better sleeping space in the room, I'd achieved them, and it was just like, what next? Yeah.
So it's kind of like you're traveling.
Exactly. Yeah. I was just about to say that. It's how you've lived your life so far. Yeah. You get into the spot where you've got to the spot where you're like, I'm comfortable here.
Now I need a new challenge.
You strive for the next level. Yeah. So I went to the embassy and I said, listen, get me to Bangkok. I said, I'm really need to get out of this prison. But I was just sick of seeing the same fucking faces every day. You know, the same. It was just mundane. Yeah. You know, it was, and I mean, I had a little plan that I thought, with a 15-year sentence, if I serve 8, at the 4-year point, I should be looking to kind of change me situation.
Spend another 4 years and then you're out.
Yeah. But at the time, Kyle, one thing that I hadn't mentioned, I won't massively go into it, but there was an agreement with England, a treaty where after 4 years, an English prisoner could go back and finish their sentence in England. Oh, so in my mind, I had this like midpoint milestone of, and all the foreigners said it, the minute I came back from court, don't worry, Si, back to England after 4 years. Yeah. Actually, you signed the paperwork at 4 years, and it took about a year to process. Yeah. So I was 15-year sentence. Signed me treaty at 4 years. Year number 5, and I'm back in HMP Wandsworth.
Were you wanting that as well? Was that the way
I
you
wanted
were
it. I
looking?
mean, because it was a no-brainer, Kyle. And the reason being is once you entered the British justice system, you were then eligible for British parole. Thailand didn't have any parole.
Right.
So, literally, the quicker you got back to your own country, the quicker you got out of prison. It was as simple as that. And then, long story short, we'll keep that story for another day. I got the rug pulled from underneath me. So I got myself moved to Bangkok thinking this is the last stepping stone before I get moved, repatriated to an English prison. And then the fucking Thai Ministry of Foreign Affairs changed the goalpost at the last minute and went, oh no, sorry, you can't go back now. Well, hang on, there's a document there that says I can't. Well, your fine has to be paid in cash. So it was all about that. And I was like, hang on, I'd researched this. That fine that I was given, it was 400,000 baht, which was probably £10,000.
Yeah.
So it was a small change. On the first King's amnesty that happens, if your sentence is over 8 years, you don't get any time removed, but they remove your fine.
Right.
So it's like you forego the first one in terms of time off, but it deals with all the extras, the fine.
So you should have had no fine at that point.
So after the first, at this point I'd had 2 amnesties.
Right.
So I'd had my fine removed and I'd had 2.5 years knocked off my sentence.
Mm-hmm.
The amnesty, because you got a bit emotional about when you were speaking about it before.
That was the last amnesty.
Oh, that was the last one.
Yeah, I had a few. So yeah, rewind.
That knocks. So just like to give, because I didn't quite understand it when you were telling us. So that if you get an amnesty, that means that you'll knock like a year off your sentence. Is that right?
It was a fraction. So there was 4 levels, and for my case and my sentence, it was a 6-page document, and there was 16 levels of amnesty. So there was 4 different categories of case, and then within that there was 4 subcategories of prisoner class. So, for example, my case was narcotics, and I could have been one of 4 classes. Normal, good, very good, excellent. And that depicted how much of a deduction you got.
Right.
So if I was good class, I would have got 1/9 of my sentence.
Yeah.
I had worked my way up to excellent class, so I got 1/6. So my first amnesty, the fine came off. My second amnesty, I got a 1/6 deduction, which I seem to remember bringing the 15 down by 2.5 years.
Right.
So I was down to 12.5 with 4 years time served.
Right.
Sign me treaty document, get myself off to an English prison. Great. Can see me mum. Have English telly, have all the benefits.
Because so obviously you became a lot closer with your mum through writing.
Yeah, I did mention
your
that
relationship. Your relationship with your mum ended up being a lot closer than what you ever had.
Yeah, because of letters, basically.
Yeah,
and because of being in such an extreme situation. I poured my heart out in letters.
Yeah, so I
was very honest.
So I can sympathise with that, or empathise with that, not sympathise. Yes. I can empathise with that quite a lot. Is again on deployment is sending a letter to someone is easier to spill your emotions on a letter
than it
is to speak to someone. If I was speaking to you, Gareth, I'll speak to you now and tell you my emotions.
I fully agree.
And you speak about things that you would never have spoke about before. Yeah. So me and my current wife, somebody made take
your only wife.
Somebody took the piss last time saying your current wife. Are you on about pushing on another wife? No. So my wife now, Laura. When I was in Afghanistan, although we were speaking over the internet now and again, whenever I could get to somewhere with Wi-Fi or somewhere with internet connection, but we would still write to each other whenever we could, because it was a different type of communication. So we'd communicate through letters, and then when we spoke to each other on Skype, it would just be that general shit. But when we spoke to each other on letters, it would be real.
It's a different dynamic,
communication.
isn't it?
And is that how you felt as well? It was like
100%.
real communication with another human being.
You know, it's not dialogue, it's monologue. You get the chance
Yeah.
to speak without any interruption.
Yeah.
I was just telling Daniel the other day, like you can think about what you want to write.
Yeah.
You can
go back to it.
You can go back to it.
Take a break.
You can cross it out and amend it. You can read over it once or twice, and then once you're happy with it, you send it. Whereas if that's a phone call, it's instant. It's done.
You miss things
it's
as
set
well.
in concrete,
Yeah, you
and
do.
you miss things.
You finish the conversation, and you get away, and you go, "We should have said that."
Well, they always say that there's that saying: if you can't say it, put it in a letter.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you know that you can only send one letter a week and it's going to take 3 weeks to get there and 3 weeks to come back, you want to make sure
it
that
count.
you say everything and
Yeah.
you say the right things and you make
And you
it
don't,
count.
and you don't want to leave anything to interpretation, because how long are they waiting for the response when they ask a question? So if you were to say something vague, and they want an answer from what you meant by vague, and they're worried about that.
That's exactly
They've
right,
now got to
mate.
wait a 6-week turnaround
Yeah.
before it all gets back to them, the answer. And it's like, I mean, geez, what did they do in World War II when they were on the front line and they were doing this shit?
No, you've got to articulate yourself
very well, yeah.
very well,
Yeah.
because you might write something down like you said, and then read it back and go, actually, she might not think that, or she might. That's not. I haven't really explained myself very
It's not
well.
a quick
there.
text after to say, you know, the little what you do when you
Oh, I forgot.
grammar. You
Yeah.
get a little star next to it to make sure you
Ah.
amend what you've just said.
Yes.
Yeah, none of that shit. No.
So yeah, I really appreciated, the art of letter writing
Yeah.
and just old school analog way. And I tell you what, it
Reconnected you with your mum.
yeah, and
basically,
it got me through and reconnected with friends on a completely different level.
Yeah.
A lot more honest and open and emotional. I'd often cry and tear up writing letters because
yeah.
when you're face to face with someone, you kind of hold back and dilute your words a little bit. But it all depended on what sort of a mood you were in when you wrote the letter.
Yeah.
If you'd had a shitty day, sometimes it helped for me to write a letter when I was down, because I would decompress and offload,
Get it all out there.
get it all out.
Yeah.
And yet sometimes I'd write a letter and I'd be completely the opposite end of the spectrum and be completely upbeat. And I didn't.
I bet you could feel that in your words as well, like the way
Yeah,
that you wrote.
On one hand, I wanted to be completely honest with my mum and not sugarcoat the truth. But then again, after a while, I didn't want to be too honest and brutally honest, where she would read it and she would start to worry.
Yeah.
So after a while, found a bit of equilibrium, a happy balance. I was thinking, she doesn't need to know that. She probably knew, but there's no need to put it in black and white and bring it to the forefront of the conversation in a letter.
It's a selfless thing from you as well, because it puts less worry on her.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in, and after a while you realise in prison that their families suffer as well.
So this brings us perfectly on, because you kind of it's like a perfect segue really, because the big part of what you've always said to me and Geth is you might have suffered in that prison, but the people who suffered the most were the people at home, basically.
Because we haven't touched on this, but
No,
you had also a child.
You
You had a daughter.
Yeah, we'll leave that full chapter for another day. But just to give you a quick summary, I had a daughter, and at the time I was arrested, she was only 12 days old. So there would barely been, I hadn't had time to bond.
Yeah.
She was a baby in arms. We'd just given her a name. I'd held her a few times, and then all of a sudden,
Fuck.
she's gone. So, in a way, thank God it hadn't happened when I had bonded to her,
And then you
A
got
year down the line.
ripped away.
and then ripped away from
Yeah.
someone that you fully, engaged and attached in emotionally. So, I mean, I had to deal with that. It wasn't easy, and she stayed with her mum, and I did get visits from them. But yeah, you know, it was difficult.
Because when you moved prison, like you said, because it was your girlfriend at the time who was the mother of your daughter.
Yeah.
And you kind of told her to just move on with her life, didn't you? When you went to the second prison.
Yeah, I knew that once I'd moved out of that province and was going to Bangkok, that it was going to be a mission and a half for her to come and see me. And you know, not having a lot of money, having to impose the whole. It's not an easy thing visiting people in prison in Thailand. Geth, it's difficult. It's for a 20-minute visit. It's a fucking long day.
Yeah,
I know because I've done it myself.
Yeah.
It's a long day for a very emotional 20-minute visit through fucking plexiglass and rusty bars and cobwebs and a telephone that doesn't work. Hello, what? Yeah. And then the bell rings and they just cut you off.
Yeah.
No early warning. So, you know, she's like, Simon, I don't know how much I can come to visit you in Bangkok. It's too far and I haven't got a car. And at that point, like I said to you, I just went, listen, don't worry about me. Don't worry. You don't need to come and visit me. Yeah, just take care of our daughter.
Yeah.
And make that your priority. I'll take care of myself. I didn't want to impose the whole my punishment for my stupidity onto someone else. And I was just like, you crack on, do what you got to do.
Yeah.
I mean, because at that point, well, I'd been sentenced and I had a large sentence.
Mm-hmm.
So there was no I'll see you in 60 days or getting out in 6 months or anything like that. It was a long sentence.
It's going to be a lifetime again before you get back, basically.
Yeah, I mean, she's 10 now.
Jeez.
So
have you still got contact? Do you still stay in contact?
Thank God for FaceTime and video calls.
Yes, technology's because like you were saying, you were in a bubble.
Yeah.
So technology evolved while you were in this bubble. You probably didn't even know what was going on outside. You've gone from Facebook had just started, probably.
Well, I'll put it into context for you, but you'll probably relate to this more, Kyle. When I got arrested, I had an iPhone 3.
Yeah.
Facebook had been out a year or two, and I had 2 or 3 apps on my phone. So apps had just started to come out. They weren't a big thing.
Yeah.
There was no Twitter, no Instagram.
Yeah.
I think there was maybe
MySpace.
MySpace.
Yeah.
Line, which is very popular in Thailand. WhatsApp,
MSN and that.
and it was still MS. So it was literally the very basic messenger apps. So an iPhone 3. What was that? 2010.
Long time ago.
It was a long time ago. Yeah. So I missed the whole.
And you came out
social media.
iPhone 8's and iPhone fucking
11s.
11s,
mate.
Was it 11 when you came out?
Yeah. I remember when I first got my sentence, I came back and I wrote in my diary, my target is to get out before iPhone 10. Because I knew they were releasing one a year. Yeah. And I'd been sent down for at iPhone 3. So I thought, if I can miss 7 iPhones and get out and buy myself an iPhone 10. And they released it when I was in my final year in Bangkok. So I was good at it. And they didn't call it 10, they called it X. Yeah. There was no iPhone 9. So I felt robbed.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So you've like you're saying, you've come out now. You're able to FaceTime, Skype, or technology connects you to somebody across the world like they're in your living room anyway. But the problem was, and we're not going too much into the kind of process of getting back and stuff like that. But you basically came back when we're saying to JD's bar, right? You went from what we're saying, lockdown to another lockdown.
From locked up to locked down.
Yeah, exactly. So you landed basically in probably the worst year of the world, basically.
But it turned out actually to be a blessing in disguise, because let's just say I'd returned to England and everything was pre-COVID, fully up and running. It would have been such a big contrast to me. I would have been like a complete fish out of water.
Yeah.
I would have been overwhelmed. I probably would have had difficulty dealing with it.
Yeah.
But arriving in the middle of a pandemic and lockdown and the government telling you, stay at home.
Yeah.
you know.
It's like, yep, all right.
So I was like, and you know, luckily I had a friend of mine from LA, California, and he was about 4 months ahead of me. And he went, Simon, I was released into a I was released just before the lockdown, and then I went into a lockdown, and he went, trust me, use it. You'll thank me for it. He said, I got back.
House for the adjustment period.
And he was like, it was a stepping stone.
Ease you out of it a little bit.
Yeah, he goes, I decompressed. I just went to my mum's house and I just chilled out and I watched Netflix, and there was no pressure of like, get a job, get up, wake up, you know, get out there, the world's moving
right,
again. So I came back and the world was asleep, and you know what?
Yeah.
That was right for me. It totally worked. I came back in the October and I had the whole of like lockdown and the winter just basically chilling out and relaxing, eating good food.
Seeing the people who you care about the most.
Yeah.
In a real capacity as well. Because you had to pick who you could see. So it was, I'm only going to pick the people who I care about the most to see because I can only see one person at a time.
And you know, the only negative thing was when they closed the pubs.
Yeah.
And I would have like, you know, all those years I'd dreamt about
sitting in a shit pub.
My first pint, and you know, thank God that day we all met in JD's.
Yeah.
I didn't even choose my own drink because I was that busy talking to people.
Yeah.
People just used to walk past to whiff and go, "What's your Simon drinking?"
Yeah. Pint on the table.
No, snake bite. Yeah.
He loves the snake.
He
bite.
loves it.
Of course, and I was like, I'm not
heavy drink when you haven't been on the booze for a long time as well.
Well, this is it,
heavy
Kyle.
drink.
So, you know, obviously drinking snake bites that are a tiny bit stronger than other drinks, and I never ever got the chance to say,
thanks.
No, mate, I've already got one.
Oh, yeah.
It was because it was going through someone else. They were just racking up on the table. I remember looking at the table once, and there was like the one I was drinking and another 3 racked up. And she's looking at me, shaking their head and going, "You're going to have to slow down, Simon, and watch yourself." You know, and I did, but they hit me absolutely. But it was
a good day.
It was a baptism of fire. It was a good day.
It was actually a really good. We
were all out in this front street racing and that.
We were sprint racing in the front street. Yeah,
I was winning the lot
until my mum rang out Craig and went, "Why is he not home yet?" And he went, "Why is that a few pints?" But Craig, he went there at 2:00. It's like it's 6:30. Like, how many's he had? And she was just like, "Get him home, get him home." And then the emergency transport came. I think Lee came, Whiff's wife came, scooped us up, and I'm glad she did because
it's enough for one day, isn't it?
I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Absolutely great afternoon. But I woke up 2 a.m. I was like, fucking hell. A hangover. Oh, I'd forgotten about the fact that you have to
deal with it next day as
suffer
well.
the downs with the ups. And I mean, at that point, I'd only been pissed once. Post release, and I was saying never again. I didn't know whether I wanted to be sick, whether I wanted to drink water, whether I wanted to go back to sleep. I was taking paracetamol. I was just like, I really can't deal with this. I had no idea how to deal with a hangover.
And not to hopefully it doesn't offend you, but you've aged 10 years as well inside there. You went from your early 30s as someone who can probably drink and
I bet you'd have been able to outdrink anyone.
Yeah,
but I had a 9-year detox. If you think of 9 years of I call it me Bangkok Health Farm detox.
Yeah. was it actually no booze as well in the jail?
Yeah.
Like no hooch or nothing like that?
No.
Fucking hell.
Because that's what they make over here, don't they?
They
make their own shite.
A friend of mine made some once, and I had a sip of some apple hooch, and that was it, only once. But it was just too difficult to, get yeast or get a container to make it in, or find somewhere to hide it while it was fermenting and brewing,
So you're back now. You kind of it's slowly integrating into normal life, and then I was meant to touch on it at the beginning. I didn't mean to touch on it at the beginning, but you've just completed the Great North Run.
I did, just quickly. One of the things that got me through the prison term was running.
Really?
Fitness.
Oh, is that how it come about?
It was. It was right. Literally when I was moved to Bangkok.
You seen a flyer, didn't you, or something like that?
A friend of mine sent in a little pamphlet from Runner's World and said, now there's a thing in England called Park Run, and there's a program called Couch to 5K, and it's an app. And I'm just like, oh, what's that then? So she literally sent in a paper hard copy analog version.
Yeah.
And it was a training program, and I'm like, oh, fucking hell, I'll have a crack at this. So put my trainers on and just like went and got
in circles.
got a tape measure, measured one of my strides,
Yeah.
and then paced out one lap of the yard, dodging all the fucking fish heads and cat shit, and thought 50 metres, 5K, 100 laps.
Yeah.
Started running and doing it, and then got to about 17 and so went, how many laps have you done? I went, I've got fucking no idea, I've lost count. So I called me a little time, mate. I gave him a couple of sachets of coffee and I went, do us a favour, mate, count the laps. Mate, and he did. He sat there, and I think my first ever 5K time was around about 27 minutes, which was fairly respectable. So every fucking 45 seconds I'd pass him and give him a finger up or a nod. It would be like,
That's
I showed him how to do a proper
That's
tally, you know, like
Yeah.
in tally, ning, song, sam, si, ha, and he's like, okay. You know, and anyway, at the end, I said, you give me the big thumbs up when no clocks, no timing, no distance measuring, literally. So I'm like, okay, 27 minutes, there's a 5K. And a few people were like, what are you doing there? You know, you silly fucker, running round in circles on the prison yard. I'm like, I've just run a 5K. And they're like, really? You know, tell us more.
Yeah.
So I cracked on with a few of the lads.
A little running crew
Had
together.
a little running crew. I had a little following, mate. It was an influencer, prison influencer. And yeah, so, you know, every Sunday I got
was
the
a running
yard.
club.
I got the yard for myself, and that was the I trained them for about 6 weeks. First it was like, you know, a 1K, or it was 10 laps. It was a bit of a jog, then a walk, a bit of a jog walk, and then a run, and then a fast run. And like after 2 months of training, you know, it was like,
I bet in the heat as well, that was fucking...
oh, it was brutal. It was Sunday morning at about 9:30 till 10:30, and depending on the time of the year, it was hot. Yeah, absolutely sweating.
Yeah.
A lot of people didn't make it. A lot of people, you know, clapped out after 70 laps or 75. Or people joining, going, "What are you doing?" "Oh, I'm running a 5K. It's 100 laps of the yard." And they're going, "I'll do it." And I'm like, "You can't. You haven't done any training." No, it's easy. What, just jogging? And they'd do it, and then you'd see them, you know, like 40 laps in, 50 laps in, just shaking their head, going,
I'm done.
"Not for me. I'm done." So yeah. Anyway, so yeah. Running. Prison got us into running.
Yeah.
And it was, when I got out, it was one thing where I thought, right, it's locked down. There's no gyms open. I'm not working. I don't really have a lot of money.
Yeah.
I got donated a second-hand pair of trainers from a good friend of mine. I mean, there was no shops open.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't think about that.
And I just went, you know, like you were saying, we have a beautiful coastline.
Yeah.
And I just dreamt about running down Castleden to Horden Beach.
Seeing the green and just the man.
I always remember a quote from a letter from an Australian prisoner that that was released and went back to Australia. And his main highlight, when he wrote back to the prison, he went, "Lads, I went out for a run today and I ran in a straight line until I stopped."
Yeah. Because he's been running around in circles.
He's been running around in circles, yeah. And that stuck in my head, and I thought, he's got a fucking good point there. So
you just wanted to run in a line?
I did the same. I ran and I ran. I found some trees and I found some cliffs, and I ran by a river. And it was October and it was cold, and I had a pair of trainers on that didn't really fit us and weren't really for running, but I didn't care.
Yeah.
I was out in the fresh air with a big smile on my face, and
fucking hell.
I managed to. A friend of mine had told us about Strava.
Yeah.
I didn't have a Garmin or anything. I had the Strava on me watch, and I was like, at the end, I was like, fucking hell, look at this. It's like told us me pace and how far I've run and everything. You know, the whole
little time bloke there.
Absolutely. Yeah, no little time bloke counting the laps. So I had a telephone telling us that I'd run 5K and that I could stop. You know, got a little, thumbs up kudos for it afterwards. And and went back and progressed from there. You know, went from running a couple of miles to the 5K. Obviously, I'd heard about parkrun, wanted to do it, but they'd been cancelled because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So wanted to do the Great North Run, and obviously there was no Great North Run because of COVID. So just started basically doing running, any distances. Joined a running club, joined Run Pete Lee, and then started doing 5Ks and then 10Ks and then racing 5Ks and racing 10Ks,
Yeah.
and found out that I was actually quite good at it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're a big lad with a big stride, so
Yeah.
clearly that was the discipline that you'd go
Of
down.
course,
what I mean?
not like, big enough to be a weightlifter or a boxer, but had the kind of physique of an athlete,
Yeah.
fairly tall and thin. So
Yeah.
running was always going to be the go. And it was, something that it fitted my situation.
Yeah.
It was cheap to do. You can do it in the fresh air. You don't need any equipment. I don't need to buy a mountain bike
Yeah.
or join a gym or buy kettlebells or anything like that. And
Just get outside.
it just worked. So
And to be honest, the lifestyle you've lived up for the past 10 years, it's just that freedom.
totally, mate.
Just run. You run as long as your body will let you. There's nobody telling you can go here, you can go there. It's just you just run as long as your body. It's the perfect kind of rehabilitation kind of aspect of thing.
I mean, you've heard of something called runner's high.
Yeah.
The dopamine release you get after having a nice run, a long run. Your heart pumping,
Yeah.
and I love that. And getting back and just being able to go out there and run, it was just in not as hot, fresh air,
Yeah, it was
little
fresh,
bit of
very
a
fresh.
cooler climate. But
So
no,
what charity did you do it in aid of? Did you do it in aid of a charity, or did you just
so
do it for
yeah,
yourself?
and I'd always obviously been from the northeast of England. The most famous half marathon in the world and the most popular was the Great North Run.
Yeah.
And I'd said when I was in prison, I wanna do the Great North Run. So getting an entry for it was difficult.
Was it?
And then someone said, if you do it for a charity,
Yeah.
they'll get you an entrance. Yeah, I didn't even know this existed.
Yeah.
So I thought, I was just telling Geth the other day, I had a lot of respect and joy brought to me from charities
Yeah.
when I was in there. So I came out with a completely, different view of charities. Very, very grateful to them.
Yeah.
So I thought, right, I'm going to do the Great North Run for a charity. Went online, had a quick scan at what was available, and thought, Dr. Bernardo's, did it for a children's charity.
Yeah.
So they sent me a running vest, and I set up the Just Giving page on my Facebook, and immediately it was like, boom, I almost went from 0 to 300 quid, with all friends and family. And I was like, God, here we go. I'm going to run a half marathon
And do something good for other people as well. So I'm you're gonna help yourself and help other people at the same time, which is always
so yeah, no, it was
win-win.
It was class going through there, and running across the Tyne Bridge, and obviously it wasn't the original route where you finish in South Shields. So in a way, it was kind of, they're only going to run this route once because next year.
Yeah, it's a
at least I can say the first Great North Run I ever done was that one that was only ever done once.
Yeah.
And I had a great day. Saw the red arrows flying over. Planned to do it in about 150. And ended up just smashing a time sub 140 and got 138.
Yeah.
Got a personal best, and crossed the line with an old mate of mine from Horden.
Yeah.
And literally, he paced us all the way.
Yeah.
A lad called Gary Bailey. Gary, if you're listening, thanks for that. We met on the minibus. I'd not seen him for about 30 years.
Yeah.
And he just went, I'm not fit, Simon, so I'm just running it for fun today. He's like, what time are you going for? And I went 145, and he went, do you want us to pace you and I'll get you to 140? And I went, yeah, all right. Yeah. So he went, just follow me. And literally,
that's so typical of our
mentality,
our area. Like, you'll meet somebody who's like, "Oh, you're from my hometown." It's like, right, I'm going to sort you out.
I'm going to help you.
I'm going to help you out.
So I ran with him shoulder to shoulder all the way, and he got us across the finish line in a time I never imagined that I'd do. So I gave him
was crossing that finish line at the Great North Run after. So when you left in '96, when was that? 2021.
So it's 25 years, isn't it?
Yeah,
exactly 25 years since I left the North
East. Was that a little bit of not closure, but just
The start of the new chapter.
Yeah. This
It
is
was
now.
How best to categorize it? It was the start of a new chapter, the close of an old one,
Yeah.
but it was also a deja vu and a big rewind because I was returning to the home where I grew up.
Yeah.
So I'd gone out, travelled the world far and wide, and then all of a sudden,
But it's
You
weird
straight
because
back.
the funny thing is if you could travel the world, right, and then you end up back where you started, you kind of go, well, I'm back where I started. But for you, it's kind of, for the last 10 years, all I've wanted to be is back where
Yeah.
I started. I've dreamt of being back where I
Yeah,
started. It's a unique perspective because if you travel around the world and you're living a high life somewhere and then you have to come back to where you live, it's like, oh, well, I'm not living that high life no more. But for you, it was like, you enjoyed a lot, but you're back where you started with you've reconnected with your mum and stuff
Yeah.
like that, and you're back in that kind of environment where I'm comfortable again. Thank the Lord, I'm here now.
being released and returning to anywhere apart from County Durham would have just been a no-go.
Yeah.
It would have been a second best.
Mm-hmm.
You know, home is where the heart is.
Yeah.
100%.
So it was back to ground zero, back to where it all started, and I knew that I had good friends, a loving family. Obviously, my mum, and you know, she'd missed us and supported us through the whole experience. So
She'll never want to let you go now. So got all your
Yeah,
t-shirts.
yeah.
But it's I always see it all the time. People don't understand when they're like, "Oh, you want to get out of here? You want to get out of here?" And like, yeah, but when you get out of here, you don't realise that
Yeah.
there's nothing like this town or this. So they're saying, if I went there, I'd never come back. You would eventually.
yeah.
Eventually, you would.
It's
yes,
the
you
people.
might.
It's the people.
It's the people, man. You just
It's
can't.
not the
beat
place. It is the people.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
remember when I arrived in the Cayman Islands and thought, this is the most beautiful place on earth. And
Yeah.
it's lovely and it's nice and I'll never want to leave here. Yet after three years,
You wanted away.
someone asked me and I'm like, you know what? Even paradise gets boring.
Yeah.
It
I'd
was
sit in the
it was-
comms for a pint any day now. That's what I used to think.
Well, yeah. Maybe not
By
the
the
comms. Maybe not the comms, but yes, I get the picture.
Yeah.
No, so yeah, it doesn't matter where you go.
So what I'm getting from this last couple of hours, right, is after you sit somewhere, you get comfortable, you get back on top to where you kind of want to be, and then it's like, I don't know. So
is this
where
good?
we're at now is him getting like,
Are you going to get comfortable and sort of say, right, or do you feel like this is where you're meant to be now?
Well, let's just say I'm taking every day as it comes,
Yeah.
one step at a time. I've obviously got to look at finding some employment.
Yeah.
You know, it was never going to be a quick process rebuilding my life. So anyway, I think a big thing for me will be probably a job might take me to a different location.
yeah,
Mhm.
Obviously, if there was a great job offered to me here and stay local, then I probably would. However, I just got the feeling that I'd probably have to look further afield
yeah.
for work. But I'm not at that stage yet. I'm looking at doing some retraining now and exploring a couple of avenues. So, we'll see. But at the moment, I'm happy
From what I've learned about you from today or tonight, I don't think you'll have any problem finding re-employment.
Nah.
It seems like you always find. It seems like you always find the place where you're a bit like a Nigerian. There's a little bit of money to be made there.
I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah. It's meant. It's 100% meant as a compliment. You've definitely got a solid business mind on you. And a smart guy. It's fascinating, really. So as far as now, no future plans as yet.
Just take
Just take it as it comes.
Yeah, no, I'm still enjoying being back in my hometown.
Yeah.
To be fair as well, we've just really came
Well,
out
that's
of
the thing.
lockdown as well. So
Yeah.
you probably
I've been back a year. It's only 2 or 3 months.
Yeah, a few months. You're actually getting.
But you know what I found? I think I might have mentioned it to Geth the other day. Lockdown was easy, and I've actually started to have a few little issues
Right.
now that full-paced life is now
It has come
happening
pretty
again.
quick as well, though, because the third lockdown ended abruptly, and it was like, right, okay, just open everything. We've had enough now. So
Yeah.
it wasn't eased back out, was it? So
I mean, you can imagine how, they were saying on the TV, people that have been locked down for a year are having issues reintegrating.
Yeah.
So you can imagine, multiply that ninefold, like
yeah,
being imprisoned for 9 years, institutionalized in a different country, and then all of a sudden you come back and
See?
you come back to lockdown, and lockdown was cool and it was easy, and then all of a sudden when everything
It's back
opened
up.
again, to be honest, lads, I got a little bit overwhelmed.
Well,
And
you said his mum give him 20 quid to go to the shop,
Yeah.
and he came back with 20 quid because
Yeah.
he said it was just
really.
too much to pick from.
I mean, being in the military yourself, Kyle, obviously you're probably aware of people that serve a lot of years in the military,
Yeah,
and then when they're released into Civvy Street, they're institutionalized.
Yeah,
They can't
100%.
function because for 9 years, I ate my breakfast when a bell rang. I sang the national anthem when a whistle blew.
100%, yeah,
I didn't have a phone or money in my pocket, so I had no decisions to make. The decision-making process was taken away from me. It was removed from the equation. So I lived a routine,
yeah.
a very military-style regime
Yeah.
every day.
So I'm about to come out of the military for a year and a half. I'm taking a sabbatical career break, and one of my friends is sorting us out with a little line of employment kind of thing. And I'm going for an induction on Monday, and he was saying, he said, "Yeah, just turn up this time." And I was like, "Right, what do I need to be wearing?" He's like, "Oh, it doesn't matter." I said, "No, you need." Like, it was weird. I was stressed now because I was like, "No, what do I need to be wearing? You need
Yeah.
to tell us what to wear," because the military for the last 12, 13 years
told you
now
what to wear.
you wear this.
Of course.
To this thing, and you turn up this time, and you need this with you.
Yeah.
And I was like, "What do I need with this?" He's like, "Well, just fucking turn up." And he doesn't understand that I need that direction. Is to say,
You need
don't
the
get us wrong.
You need the structure.
Yeah, I need. Tell us what. Where? So what? I can turn up in fucking bikini. Like, what we should tell us what I need.
No, I had exactly the same, Kyle. Going somewhere and I'd be like, "What's the dress code? Do I need a shirt? Do I need a tie?
Yeah.
Do I need shoes? Do the shoes have to be black?"
And then that starts to build up a little bit, doesn't it? 'Cause it's
Yeah.
like, oh fuck it, I just won't go anymore. Do you know what
totally,
I mean?
mate, 100%.
I'll just not go. It's too fucking stressful.
It stacks up, and all of a sudden, like, accepting an invitation to go somewhere turns into like 5 or 6 different decisions to make. Like, well, how much money will I need?
Yeah.
Things like, can I pay cash or is it card? I don't have a card. I don't have a bank account. Will I need any ID? How should I get my hair cut? And I'm just
Yeah.
like, and in the end, I'm just like, fucking, I'm not going to go.
Yeah.
I'll just stay at home and
The amount of people that listen to that, right, and listen to that statement there, and they'll be like, 100%, I fucking, especially coming out of lockdown, but other people who've just dealt with that their whole lives will 100% agree. It's just, life at the minute, it's become too complicated, right, with everything, especially social media. I've touched on this before, but everything's just become so complicated. Like, what do you need to wear? Well, you should just go in what you're comfortable in. Why do people have to worry about what they've got to wear to a certain... What fucking trainers are them, bro? Like, fuck that shit, man.
It's a superficial life.
The whole, the responsibility of making the decision put onto me, it was quite hard to deal with. Just for simple of having 20 quid to spend in the shop and picking when... Before I didn't have any choice, like
you'd plan your purchases.
There was one can of tuna and there was one packet of noodles, so you and then all of a sudden you're standing in an aisle and you're faced with 16 different products that are all very similar, that are a similar price, and I'm just thinking, well, I'll get that one. Then the other part of my brain goes, no, that one's cheaper, and that one goes, well, that's got more in, but there's a 2-for-1 offer. Oh, but if I get that, then maybe my mum won't like that. And I'm just like, and in the end, so I was just saying to Geth, now I need to go into a shop with a list.
Yeah, a plan,
and know exactly what I'm buying. And I don't weave up and down and browse the aisles.
Bam,
I walk
bam,
straight
bam.
and go, right, jar of pasta sauce, bag of spaghetti, and some mincemeat.
Yeah.
I walk straight to the till and walk out.
Aye.
When I take my mum shopping, I drop her off at the supermarket and I disappear for 40 minutes and I come back and pick her up.
Yeah.
I know it's out of my comfort zone. It'll come.
It'll come, it will come.
And I've yet to go out and buy any clothes. Like, I've bought a couple of things off eBay.
Yeah.
A running vest, a Nike running shirt. But God, I've not walked around a city centre
And
you
just
know,
went
with
clothes.
trying
cash
on
and a
clothes
credit
and
card
shit,
and
yeah.
trying on and fitting rooms and
Yeah.
having like 6 different things to choose from. And to be honest, it scares us a little bit. It's a little bit out of my comfort zone. So, you know, I've still got a long way to go in terms of that.
Does-
But
does-
mean,
I
I'll
said,
get
but
there,
the
man.
thing as well, what I touched on. So obviously, if you'd came over here, and you'd finished your prison sentence here, you would have had counselling here. But you've came here,
Yeah.
you've got no previous convictions,
Yeah.
so you are actually having to deal with everything on your own
Yeah.
without any support. Well, obviously you have support of your family and your friends,
Professional support.
but
Profession-
there's
no,
no professional support for you, and it's something that you would probably have to go out and pay for out of your own money.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, if I was released in the British system, I would have had a probation officer and probably like a resettlement officer that
Yeah.
would have handled social housing, benefits, easing me into the job market, things like that. So, because I just landed back on a plane, when I walked through Heathrow Airport, I could have just been a tourist returning from a tour.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, thank God, and I want to give a big shout out to the charity Prisoners Abroad. They basically helped us in prison. They sent us a little bit of money. They sent books. They sent magazines. They sent vitamins. And then when I got back, if ever I was stuck, I gave them a call, and they were like, "Right, you know what you." It was basically ID. I'd been away for so long.
Yeah.
I got back. I didn't have a driving license. I didn't have a passport. I didn't exist. I wasn't on the electoral roll. I couldn't get credit. I couldn't get a mobile
Yeah.
phone. I couldn't get a SIM card. And I tell you what, it was fucking difficult.
Yeah.
But they'd preempted that in some literature I read, a newsletter. They're like, your biggest problem is going to be ID. So when I got back, anyway, and they were right, it was. Everything I asked for, they were like, have you got a driving license or a passport? And I'm like, no, sorry, but you can't have a bank account.
Yeah.
Sorry, you can't have a SIM card. Sorry, you can't get a mobile phone. And I'm like, fucking hell, this is a bigger deal than I thought.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I called them up and they're like, right, Simon, you basically need to break it down into steps. And it's the order in which you do the steps. It'll be the key to getting it done quickly. And she said, like, get your national insurance number first. And I was like, I already know my national insurance number. And she's like, no, call them up, tell them you don't know it, and for them to send you it in writing, because then you have a government document with your national insurance number posted to your address.
Yeah.
That's your first form of ID.
Yeah.
With that, you can then go and get
Really?
an application for a driving license. A passport. When your passport comes, they will then automatically print your driving license. Then you've got your 2 forms of ID. You know, and then basically the floodgates open. So
Do they have a somewhere you can donate?
yes,
Yeah, I'll message one of us that thingy, and we'll put in the link in the description if anybody wants to donate.
great, yeah, because I mean, I always said they helped me and many other prisoners so much that I've got a lot of books and magazines, and I called them up the other day and I said, listen, I want to.
You want to send
these.
them over.
Yeah.
I mean, it was. I think we were still in the lockdown, and they were like, our offices are not open, Simon, but once we get open, we'll give you an address and just bang them in a box. And I said, yeah, no problem, because reading material in prison was a big thing, and obviously, you know, wanted to get out. In that way, I'm supporting the prisoners and the charity that supported me and the prisoners. So yeah, big shout out to Prisoners Abroad.
We'll stick that in the link in the description of that, as well as the other things we've talked about. So yeah.
Well, you know, I'm starting to lose my voice, and we've done a good couple of
We
hours.
have.
You know,
It was longer than you wanted to do. To be fair, wasn't it? You were like, I don't know how long I'll be able to do, and
you know,
you've done well, mate.
I'd figured, like, you know,
I
an hour,
appreciate
maybe
it.
it's an hour and a quarter, but
Now we fully appreciate the fact that
mate. Yeah.
you
you
kind
know,
of
it is good to offload and decompress,
Yeah.
especially because
well, this is like a little bit of therapy for you.
Yeah.
it is you know, and it's different when you unload to strangers.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, obviously you're lads from my hometown, but I don't
Yeah,
know.
we are
weren't
strangers,
close.
really.
We're a
Yeah.
generation different,
Yeah.
so yes,
Yeah.
we are
Yeah.
strangers. You know, having an unbiased ear to listen
Yeah.
to. So thank you very
And
much.
thank you.
there is elements of everybody's life that can empathise slightly. So nobody's ever alone when you're thinking about the kind of experiences you've got as well, which is a big thing.
You know,
Yeah, 100%.
Like at some point, I will stop talking about it. Yeah, at some point, I will close.
You don't want it to
say-
define you, basically.
Exactly. You know, but yeah, and I wasn't going to. I'd kind of already thought about closing the chapter, but then when I saw your podcast and realised what you were doing and that it would benefit other people, you know, and I thought,
Yeah, that
why not? You know, I felt like I was giving something back. So, you know, I hope that someone gets some benefit from this podcast.
I think
Yeah, I think they will,
I think
100%.
they will, 100%. Yeah.
In maybe
There's a lot of people who's going to want to know more as
and
well.
when I come back for for chapter 2, we can
Yeah,
go
we'll
a
do
little bit more
part
into
two
the
at some point. Yeah,
into the coping mechanisms of
Yeah.
mental health, because it was a big part of my journey.
Yeah.
Dealing with it, an emotional roller coaster of ups, downs. I think I mean I felt everything. You know, anger, self-pity, shame, sorrow, bitterness. You know,
Yeah.
Yeah.
from one end of the spectrum to the other. So, and then, the UK having such a big mental health problem at the moment, then if someone can benefit by hearing,
yes, I
They
can
will.
guarantee there'll be someone.
Yeah.
But like I was saying before with the podcast, if one person listens to it and it benefits even one person, then we've done the right thing. We've done a good thing. So
And
thanks.
I remember your kind of parting question, and I think you said we always end the podcast by saying, if you could give.
Yeah, if you give one piece of advice, to
Yeah.
your younger self or to the people in your situation in your younger years, what would it be?
It's probably, I'd have to split it into two, but I would say that try not to dwell too much on the past. Yeah, it's okay to make mistakes as long as you learn from them, put them behind you, and move on and become a better person. And
100%.
I'm living proof of that. Secondly, don't be frightened to go out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
And take some small risks, and put yourself out there a bit. More often than not, you benefit from doing that.
Was it Winston Churchill who said, "Damn the torpedoes"? Which is basically, I don't care about the risk. I'm gonna step out and try and make this world a better place.
And thirdly, a pretty obvious one, maybe a bit cliche, but no matter how bad things are, remember that there's always someone worse off
Who's
than
worse
yourself.
off? Yeah.
And on that note,
that's
I
a perfect statement. I
Yeah,
think,
yeah.
to end it on. Thank you very much, Si. Honestly,
Thank
well,
you
guys,
very
absolute
much.
pleasure
Fucking
chatting to you. So
pleasure.
wish you all look in the world with a podcast, and hope I'll
Cheers,
come
brother.
back.
We
for
wish
an,
you all the luck in the world for
Yeah.
the future.
And if you ever need anybody to chat to, come back without the mics and have a little bit crack. And
we friends for life now.
yeah.
Definitely. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Cheers.
brother.
Thank you.
Right.
Lovely.
Thanks very much, guys. Thanks for listening again.
Yeah, we appreciate it. Hope you all enjoyed this episode. It's been, a good few hours. We've had ups, highs, and lows. Certainly the lows.
Yeah.
But this is living proof that if you go through a tough time, things can change.
100%.
The situations change you for the better, and Simon is living proof of that. So
100%.
Thanks very much for listening, guys.
cheers now.
Peace.
Peace.
Bye-bye.